Meet Rian, the youngest scion of the legendary House Sermon on the Dre continent. A boy born for a life of luxury, but peace was a lie. His world shattered when his father and brothers vanished, leaving the family defenseless and broken. Seizing the chaos, the vile House Phaeton dragged him into the abyss, subjecting him to horrors beyond human imagination. They thought they killed him. They were wrong. Rian woke up in Aedeon, a hellish, infinite war zone where gods play with souls. In this cosmic slaughterhouse, the weak die fast. But Rian evolved ascending as the terrifying Ghost King from the ashes. He perfected the lethal arts of shadows, necromancy, and the undead, eventually turning his blades toward the heavens themselves. Even the Ghost King falls. Yet death failed again. He blinked, finding himself back in his fragile 12-year-old body. The nightmare was over, but the power remained. Every god-slaying skill and spectral memory was etched into his soul. Armed with future knowledge and god-tier strength, he's ready to flip the script and save the House of Sermon. First order of business, a cold, calculated massacre of House Phaeton, the monsters who butchered him in his past life. They took everything from him once. Now he's coming back to take their very lives, and their souls. Let's take it back to where the trauma began. Picture this Rian, broken, bleeding, and literally being carved apart. His flesh was a canvas of agony sliced open repeatedly as steam rose from his mangled raw skin. Nearby, torture tools sizzled over embers of charred remains. Across the room, a white-haired devil watched with twisted glee. Treating the agony like a theatrical show, the man grabbed Rian by the hair, inspecting his dying prize. Despite the tremors, Rian's blood-soaked eyes burned with pure defiance. The man just smirked, loving the kid's useless rebellion. The torture intensified until a guttural scream tore through the silence. Crimson spray painted the stone walls like macabre art. The executioner grew bored, annoyed that the boy refused to just die. Rian tried to plead, to beg for mercy, but his vocal cords were shredded. Only wet, broken gurgles escaped his ruined jaw. The man leaned in, fascinated. Rian's eyes begged for the end. The man just laughed, mocking the boy for losing the very tongue he used. He wondered aloud if Sermon blood still held any worth, though the novelty of the hunt was clearly wearing thin. "Don't die yet," he whispered. "House Phaeton isn't finished playing with their favorite little toy just yet." Then he laughed, admitting this was all just a sick celebration for the 3rd anniversary of House Sermon's total annihilation. Rian slumped forward, his heavy chains rattling as he literally drowned in the weight of his own spilled blood. Pale moonlight pierced the dark cell. Beneath it, a broken boy hung from iron shackles amidst a sea of gore. 3 years of hell. That's how long he'd been in this hole. The name of his family flickered like embers. House Sermon, once the vanguard of Dre's military might, the iron wall that kept the darkness at bay. Their standard was a symbol of hope carving through the tides of abominations flooding out of the dark zone. Of the 5 great houses, Sermon sat on the throne. They were the pinnacle of prestige and raw martial power. But when the pillars of the family vanished overnight, the once mighty house began to rot from within. House Phaeton didn't hesitate. They struck like vipers, exploiting the sudden weakness to tear the Sermons apart. Their goal was total genocide. They wanted the legendary Sermon bloodline legacy all for themselves, a divine blessing that made them gods among men, the legendary unstoppable power of the dragon's blood. Sermon children were prodigies, archmages by 10, swordmasters by 15. But Rian, he was a different story. He was the glitch in the system, an anomaly born once every few centuries carrying a dark ancestral curse, a destiny entwined with the demon king Arkan himself. Rian was the one chosen to bear that heavy fate. Because of that, Mark Mana and Steel ignored him. He was a powerless ghost in a family of titans. As a child, he'd prayed to be normal. He'd begged for a strength that never answered his calls. He knew the truth. Without this curse, House Phaeton would never have dared to touch his family. His kin would still be standing. The world would still know the glory of the Sermon banner today. The Phaeton monster grinned, twisting a jagged blade deeper as he prepared yet another experiment on the boy. If Rian had been strong, he wouldn't be this man's plaything. But those thoughts were fading fast now. Anger requires energy he no longer possessed. His body hung limp, his breath coming in shallow final gasps. A cold, peaceful clarity washed over him. After years of torment, the end was finally knocking at his door. He welcomed the dark. The world blurred into gray as his consciousness drifted into the eternal void. Eyes snapping open, he's gone from reality. Welcome to Aedeon, a boundless war zone where gods play with lives. Amidst the carnage, Rian evolves into the legendary Ghost King, a god-tier player wielding every class, assassin, necromancer, and even inquisitor. He defies the heavens themselves. Violet bolts rip through the void as a titan stares him down. Nightmarish shadows loom birthed from the dark curse, festering deep within his fractured soul. Their crushing aura suffocates the realm, swarming the dying boy who bore their seal since his first breath. Ancient malice stirs in his gaze. Steel meets bone in a whirlwind of absolute carnage and fury. Screams mesh into chaos. His younger self flickers like a dying ember swinging wildly while allies fall. Drowning in blood and ash, a shimmering figure descends, a radiant being, posing as a holy angel. With hair like liquid gold, he watches the slaughter with a twisted, sadistic grin of pure amusement. Savoring the ruin of a life, the boy surges upward. He refuses to break, even as shadows devour him. His foe sneers with divine arrogance, his hands dripping with holy poison. Light shatters the sky. Existence collapses into one lethal strike. A golden hellscape erupts, incinerating the very horizon. The angel emerges from the dust unblemished and terrifyingly radiant. Ancient flames dance around him in worship. Reaching out, his voice thunders like a final judgment. He doesn't offer mercy, he offers a dark pact. A bargain fueled by pure spite. Then reality cracks. A hand tears through the blinding golden light. Light blinds him. The world flips like a shredded page. A desperate, youthful voice pulls him back. The void vanishes. Instead, warm lamplight glows as a girl's frantic sobbing fills the room. "Young master," she cries, shaking him as if trying to snatch his soul back from death. He blinks. A maid's trembling face hovers above her eyes wide behind tear-fogged glasses. Pure panic radiates from her. Then it hits him. She looks young, impossibly young. She fusses, scolding him through tears. Her voice is a chaotic mix of terror and deep-seated worry. It drags him back to a life he'd buried long ago. The boy just stares. His heart hammers with icy dread. This can't be. He's back at the Serwin estate before the fall. And his nanny, Colin, the woman who should be aged by trauma, stands before him completely untouched. She's shivering with concern. No way. This is impossible. Panic surges. He demands a mirror. She fumbles, tripping over her own feet to fulfill his frantic request. Too stunned to ask why she brings it. He takes a breath and faces his reflection. A child's face stares back. His body, his skin, everything is exactly as it was years ago. The date, he barks. Colin stammers, August 7th, 1892. A cold shiver runs down his spine. He's 12. The year the nightmare started. Fire flickers in his mind. He remembers the exact moment. When House Serwin first crumbled, that golden monster's face haunts him, echoing that same twisted promise. He'd grant a wish. Rion grips the mirror tight, forcing his mind to stop racing. Seeing his reflection, reality sinks in. He's truly back. Footsteps echo down the hall. Colin moves as an older man enters. A face from his future. Rion glares. It's Alejandro, the captain of the Serwin Knights. Seeing Rion's pale face, he cancels the morning's training. Rion studies him like a predator hiding his inner storm behind a mask of calm. Colin starts to fuss, but he cuts her off with a cold, quiet no. She flinches at his newfound authority. Alejandro narrows his eyes, but Rion simply stands tall. "I'm fine," he snaps. He slides off the bed, leaving them stunned, and asks for today's drill. Alejandro hesitates. This sudden drive is more shocking to him than any fever. He reveals its longsword footwork. Rion stands with terrifying composure. His voice carries an edge of absolute certainty. It's enough to make Alejandro wonder if this is even the same boy he raised. With zero hesitation, Rion claims his place as a Serwin. He knows exactly who he is now. The golden figure's whisper echoes in his mind. Was this return his wish? Rion prepares to change fate? That old oath once shackled him, but now he didn't care. His golden opportunity was finally here. He ditched the boring drills entirely. Inside, the curse squirmed as the phantom of his former self loomed over him, pushing him forward. This time, he was heading straight for the monster kill. This was the opening he'd been denied for lifetimes. A lethal spark of resolve ignited in his eyes. He wouldn't waste this. Under the morning sun, a shimmering golden system interface flickered into existence. It revealed his pathetic bottom-tier stats. The wretched arcane curse still clung to his soul like a parasite. It suppressed his mana and drew monsters to him. Even so, the system vibrated with a response. This screen appeared because of a unique power he alone wielded. He focused, testing its boundaries. His regression hadn't stripped his core ability away. Suddenly, Alejandro stepped back into the room, announcing that the beast was ready. Rion dismissed the status window and marched toward the arena. A restrained goblin screeched in fury, its eyes glowing with bloodlust the second it sensed him. Driven by primal hunger, the creature lunged, hurtling toward the Sermon family heir Rion. Dust flew as it closed the distance, but Rion didn't flinch, his wooden sword held ready. Alejandro and Colin watched from the sidelines. Colin's face twisted into a mask of pure alarm, begging Alejandro to end the trial. Usually just the sight of a goblin made the boy collapse. Alejandro stayed silent, tracking Rion's every move. Rion knew her fears were well-founded. Until yesterday, the sight of a monster would have paralyzed him. Now, he simply stabilized his breathing. He had survived literal hell. A lowly goblin was no longer the impossible mountain it once was. The curse pulsated. Warnings flared as the system reacted to the arcane corruption stirring within him. Childhood trauma surged back violently, a suffocating pressure, tightening its lethal grip around his heart. For a moment, that old dread tried to drag him back into his past life's helplessness. Agony seared behind his eyes. Dark silhouettes began to swirl, manifesting a truly monstrous presence, mirroring the curse that owned his fate. Rion gritted his teeth. He finally understood the truth. The curse fed on fear, turning minor pests into nightmares. This panic was just another arcane trick. Sensing the boy's distress, Alejandro stepped forward, declaring the test was officially over. Rion gripped his sword tighter and refused. He lunged forward before anyone could react, charging the beast. The goblin shrieked, meeting his charge. His footwork was rough, but his will was absolute iron. This monster was merely the first pebble on his path. He crushed the rising panic underfoot, and reminded himself, compared to the golden god-tier monster he once fought, this was nothing. That past horror made this curse-born fear feel like a joke. The goblin's scream barely fazed him. His trauma was his armor. As the beast pounced, Rion charged straight into the danger zone. Visions of hellfire and a colossal golden entity flashed in his mind, threatening to consume his soul. A god's gaze once broke him, so a goblin meant zero. He swung his wooden blade. The strike landed perfectly, sending the beast reeling. The spectators stood there, completely paralyzed by shock. They couldn't believe his raw power. Colin gasped in disbelief while Alejandro watched with wide, stunned eyes. A notification pinged. He had finally shattered the mental shackles that had imprisoned him for years. The curse's rank plummeted, its influence fading. A new alert followed, his monster phobia was gone. The goblin trembled, sensing a new predator. Rion walked closer, demanding a real blade from Alejandro. His commanding tones silenced the entire arena. Colin tried to protest, her voice shaking with worry, but Rion simply flashed a cold, confident smirk. Alejandro felt a surge of pride mixed with disbelief, realizing the boy had evolved. Rion had finally breached a wall he never could before. The goblin whimpered its legs, giving out. Rion advanced without hesitation, as dark shadows swirled around him, but they no longer controlled him. With one brutal surgical swing, he took the creature's head. Crimson splattered his face, but his gaze didn't waver. Alejandro stared at the young master, with a strange tremor in his chest. For once, hope finally began to burn again, a beacon of hope for the fading Sermon bloodline. Beside him, Colin watched with bated breath as the young master began his demonstration. Rion's lethal posture, that cold intensity, and the crimson dripping from his blade, the truth was finally undeniable. The boy he once shielded had transformed completely. Before him stood the true successor of House Sermon. Leaving the goblin's mangled remains behind, Rion marched toward the manor, a trail of blood marking his path. Splashing freezing water onto his face later that night, he stared at his reflection. He looked exhausted, yet different. His gaze was sharp and unwavering. The system was real. He'd finally shattered Arcane's suffocating curse. Growth was no longer a dream, it was reality. The heavy burden lifted, yet a new worry surfaced upon checking his stats. He scowled. The experience gain was pathetic. At this rate, he'd need a mountain of goblin corpses just to level up once. Tens of thousands of kills just for one rank. He didn't have that kind of time. He needed a shortcut. Visions of hell plagued his mind, scorching flames, desperate screams, and the inevitable downfall of his family's legacy. Doom was fast approaching. Yet the fact that he'd broken the curse gave him a sliver of hope to survive. He wasn't a powerless pawn anymore. Gripping the holographic window, he swore not to let this golden opportunity slip away. House Sermon was hanging by a thread. It had been 2 years since his father and brothers vanished into thin air. Their rivals were playing the long game, hiding their murderous intent behind masks of nobility and fake smiles. Time was his greatest enemy, but he'd confirmed one way to power up. Rion took a deep, steadying breath. Mana flickered around his knuckles as a new resolve burned in his eyes. He knew his next move. If combat worked, it was time to test the second path. He pushed open the heavy doors to the Great Hall. Sina appeared like a localized hurricane. Her vibrant crimson hair signaled a power that demanded absolute submission. Pure pressure radiated from her as she walked down the marble stairs, embers dancing in her wake. Reports of his hunt had already reached her. She sat across from him, her eyes sharp enough to draw blood. She demanded to know why he'd summoned her. Was he truly seeking magic training after all this time? Senna, the legendary commander of the Sermon Mages, and a 7th Circle Archmage, a titan on this continent. A genius who rivaled even Alejandro, she was a woman of secrets that only his father truly understood. Her patience wore thin instantly. She scoffed, reminding him that magic wasn't as simple as swinging a sword. He was talentless. They'd given up on him because his body couldn't even feel the flow of mana. No blade skills, no magic, and zero academic promise. To her, he was a lost cause, carved in stone. Rion didn't flinch. He'd lived through that humiliation every single day. The curse had robbed him of everything. Until now. He leaned in, his voice a low growl, asking her reaction if he could suddenly perceive mana. Her composure shattered. Shock gripped her as the teacup on the table began to rattle violently. Sina erupted in a pillar of fire, her mana manifesting as a towering phoenix that engulfed the room. She decided to test him herself, weaving an intricate mana illusion meant to baffle anyone of his rank. He didn't blink. A red dragon, he stated clearly. Sina froze, completely stunned by his accuracy. She'd intentionally masked the spell, yet he saw right through it. When he asked if he was wrong, she was speechless. No, she breathed, circling him like a predator. How could a failure transform so drastically in just one day? The family curse wasn't something you just outgrew. She leaned in close, demanding to know how he'd done it. How could he see her illusions? He simply shook his head, focusing on the one thing he actually needed. Sensing mana was one thing, but he lacked the sermon refinement technique, the core of their family's power. To mold mana within his soul, he needed that specific method. And for that, he needed her expertise. Her tone turned deadly serious. Refining mana meant baring your very soul, leaving your life completely vulnerable. If she helped him, his life would literally be in her hands. Flames began to swirl around her once more. It was a final warning. He met her gaze without trembling, a faint, knowing smirk playing on his lips. If she wanted him dead, she could have finished him years ago. He was currently no match for her anyway. Rion knew Sina was his only true ally. Even in his past life, when their home was turned to ash, she was the one who stood in the breach. He remembered the inferno and her fighting as her body broke. Even with her mana drained to the bone, she refused to yield. She protected him until her very last breath. That flashback forged his resolve into steel. He whispered her name. As she faced him, the unfiltered truth spilled out. A secret buried in his past life finally escaped. He trusted her completely. The confession left her paralyzed with shock. A soft glow dusted her cheeks beneath the mask, yet her gaze never wavered. Rion knelt on the cold floor, exposing his bare chest. Muscles tightening under the mana's hum, Sena readied the ritual, warning him of the impending agony. He gave a resolute nod. The ceremony ignited. Crimson energy spiraled around her like a living, hungry flame, illuminating ancient runes carved into the air. This was the Blue Earth refinement, a secret reserved only for elite heirs. A technique forging raw power into the heart of a night mage. Up until now, he had only studied theory, yet she wielded it with flawless perfection. Rion watched in silence. In his previous life, he had mastered this very path to boost his stats. Now he was starting from the beginning once more. Sina's sharp voice snapped him back to reality. Focus was vital. He forced his breathing into a steady, calm rhythm, letting the mana's warmth seep into his pores. Sina pressed her palms against him, and golden light surged with punishing force. She cautioned that the pain would be hellish. He must not scream or resist. Rion gritted his teeth, bracing himself. Sina told him to stop if his mind fractured. Her voice remained firm while a mana storm thickened around them. The first wave felt like liquid fire melting his bones. The intensity skyrocketed, dragging horrific ghosts from his past to the surface. A blood-stained chamber, heavy chains, and a sadistic white-haired torturer. Grinning through the carnage, his body trembled, yet he would not flinch. He reclaimed his breath and crushed the nightmare. He had survived far worse before this reincarnation. The mana pressure spiked as Sina's flow bored deeper into his soul. Rion locked his jaw, sweat drenching his skin. His will was iron. He rasped that his trust in her was absolute. That single truth was his fuel. Sina's gaze softened for a heartbeat before she doubled down on the ritual. The refinement reached a fever pitch. His veins shimmered as chaotic colors of mana spiraled violently through his entire frame. Sina channeled the power with precision, but the curse struck back. Rion felt the darkness ignite within him, like a dormant monster, finally baring its fangs. System alerts flashed, Arcane Curse activated, mana scattering in progress. His body spasmed as the flow repeatedly shattered. Undeterred, Sina flooded his system with even more raw energy. The curse retaliated with a vengeance, dismantling her work. Fractures of golden light rippled across his skin like breaking glass. He gasped for air, but she did not retreat. This was expected. Her voice remained calm as she increased the force. The curse erupted over and over, system pings screaming in his mind. His core felt like it was detonating. Energy splintered through his core until he was vibrating with pain. Rion held his ground, refusing to taste the floor. The alerts were for his eyes only. He felt the curse battling her mana with savage brutality. Sina was straining now. Her teeth were gritted, fighting to tame the flow. Even as the curse tore it apart, Rion saw the outcome. A seventh circle archmage's power was not enough to crush a top-tier curse. But he was not relying on her mana. He only needed the forbidden technique from Ideon. He let the curse run wild, baiting it to explode on his terms. Energy exploded through his limbs, but he diverted the chaos inward. The moment it tried to leak out, he locked it down, keeping the explosion contained. He was about to play this curse like a fiddle, claiming every single drop of mana for himself. His mind went razor sharp. The energy swirled, but nothing escaped his grip. Sina stared in pure shock as the volatile mana remained trapped beneath his skin. The curse kept triggering, relentless. Memories flickered like strobe lights with every pulse. Still, he held on, weaving his mana into a cage, cinched tight over a raging ocean. System notifications stacked until they were nothing but a chaotic blur in his sight. An inferno roared through his mana circuits. It felt like molten lead was being pumped directly into his veins. His lungs burned, but he refused to let the curse win. This would not break him. He'd survived worse hells. Gore-soaked battlefield memories flooded his mind. Swarms of monsters clashing steel, and the thunderous roar of the blue dragon he once mastered. His body had broken before, but his spirit was eternal. He remembered his true identity. He was not some weak noble. He was the legendary player who once dominated Edeon. His mastery of mana was not bound by this world. It was etched into his very soul eons ago. His physical vessel was frail, but his soul held the blueprint to every mana circuit and hidden exploit in existence. That ancient instinct roared to life. Channeling every bit of his forbidden knowledge, he forced the chaotic mana to obey. Sinews strained as power surged. His body didn't break, it ignited in a blinding flash. Golden lightning coiled around him as he gripped his will. Arcan's name echoed through Rion's fading mind. A bone-white wraith hovered blue flames, hissing as razor-sharp claws sliced the air. The blonde-haired monster laughed, bored by it all, mocking Adrian's god as a mere fly. Rion's instincts flared before his mind could. Blue mana exploded from his core like a supernova. Shattering the dark, his stance locked. Burned muscles tensed as the raw power roared inside. Nearby, Sena stumbled, pure terror washing over her. She reached out, desperate to help. Rion's surging aura violently repelled her. Then the backlash struck, searing every nerve with heat. His flesh turned gold, then bruised purple. He slammed into the stone wall, collapsing. With yellow sparks fading like dying embers, she screamed his name. He heard nothing but silence. Agony consumed him, but a darker memory haunted him more: the iron room and rusted chains. Blood pooling on cold stone as surgeons debated cutting him apart to test his healing factor. They whispered coldly about disposing of him, calling him nothing more than a failed experiment. Compared to that hell, this pain was nothing. Steel sang, a scream erupted, and a body fell. Rion's vision cleared, just as a captor was sliced open by a sudden mysterious savior. Another guard was butchered before drawing steel. Panic spread through the dark dungeon like wildfire. As survivors realized the chaos, Rion woke up, but his eyes were fixed on the distance. He stared at the sky. Frozen air filled his lungs as moonlight bathed the forest silver. Scents of moss and freedom drifted by. Bleeding and broken, he wondered, was this salvation or a lie? A blood-drenched figure loomed. Alejandro's battered silhouette came into view, his breathing heavy and ragged. With trembling hands, he cupped the boy's face, checking for life. Rion watched through a hazy fog. Disbelief washed over the pain. Alejandro had truly fought through hell just to save him. The old warrior managed a pained smile, arrows buried in his back like cruel black thorns. Whispering a long overdue apology, he pulled the boy into a fierce, shaking embrace, refusing to let go. He shielded Rion as blood pooled below. Every breath sounded like his lungs were being torn apart, yet his grip remained desperate and unshakable. Rion's world began to spin and fade once more. Past and present blurred: the cell, the screams, and the endless experiments. He remembered nights spent begging for a savior. Compared to that void, this was peace. The pain didn't matter because he wasn't alone. When his eyes finally opened again, warm sunlight danced through a window. It felt like a dream far from the dungeon's nightmare. The power refinement had worked, but the trauma still clawed at his soul, unearthing old scars. Relief was buried under the weight of memory. Still, he forced himself to stand tall. He wouldn't let history repeat. Not now that he has power, though it must remain a secret. He had to hide it from Faye. Their family banner loomed in his mind like a warning. He wasn't strong enough to challenge them. One wrong move, and everything would burn again. When a new dawn broke, Rion felt the icy weight of memories he wished were dead. The refinement succeeded, but the victory felt hollow, haunted by the echoing misery of his past. He swore it never again. Not while he breathed, not with the strength he now held. That meant total secrecy. He had to deceive even Sena and Alejandro, his only allies. Seeing their worried faces stung, but he couldn't drag them into his dark reality. Would they even believe his story? No telling them would only cause more useless pain. Their kindness made the burden heavier. Then the moment of truth arrived as Sena stepped forward. A detection spell flared around her like a sun. She pressed a glowing hand against him. As her magic washed over his skin, there was nothing. The golden power had vanished completely. Her jaw dropped. She tried again, fueling the spell, but the result remained a total void. His mana vanished entirely. Sena gasped, unable to believe the sudden void. Yesterday's suffocating power was gone. Terrified by the anomaly, she bolted away. Rion watched her flee, his expression unreadable as he softly called her. Alejandro stepped in, masking his pity with words of hollow encouragement. He urged Rion toward the sword, claiming magic wasn't his only path. Rion just offered a faint, faked smile, playing the part of failure. He weaponized his supposed exhaustion, acting like a helpless, drained child. It worked perfectly. Alejandro was moved, fully believing the boy's limits. Winter arrived. 2 months of frost chilled the halls of the mansion. Rumors poisoned the corridors. Colin's face was etched with deep mounting dread. With Rion isolated, House Sermon began to crumble under the rising tension. Only the madam fought on, desperately trying to stop the inevitable collapse. But even she was breaking. Servants began whispering like snakes in shadow. Was he a fraud, just a flicker of talent destined to go dark? Doom was the new prophecy. They whispered he was born to fade. Colin defended him fiercely, her voice trembling against their cold, cruel logic. She claimed he was trying, yet fear gripped her heart just the same. What was he hiding? The scoundrel's reputation began to spread like wildfire. Across the kingdom, Rion Sermon became a synonym for disappointment and failure. He was no longer an heir, just trash. Colin stood alone in his defense. He's only 12, she argued, but the servants only saw a sinking ship. Staff began packing. The house was a ghost of its former self. Colin had no answer. Meanwhile, Rion watched the decline with cold satisfaction. Even the food grew meager. To him, ruin tasted like a masterpiece. Bankruptcy was close. His plan for financial destruction was moving perfectly. His past self would have fought to save this rot. What a waste. Now he simply waited for the final sparks of hope to vanish. Let them think he's weak. The moment to strike was drawing near. The family head was gone. The eldest brother and mages never returned. Search parties vanished into the void. The house was truly, utterly alone. The training grounds were silent, now haunted by loss and growing fear. House Sermon was a skeleton stripped of knights and any real hope. Other nobles looked away, disgusted by the smell of a dying legacy. Rion just lounged in bed, savoring the peace of being completely forgotten. Being dead weight was a gift. He basked in the guilt-free sunlight. Playing the shut-in was easy, though the downfall was frustratingly slow. Rich houses rot slowly. He needed to push the ruin even harder. Suddenly, the door crashed open. Colin burst in like a storm wind. "Get up," she screamed. "The night captain is waiting. No more excuses." She dragged him like a corpse, her strength fueled by pure, raw desperation. Rion's mind lagged as he was hauled into the light by force. They stared at each other, a moment of shared, wide-eyed, absolute horror. Then came her vow. She had raised him, and she wouldn't leave. Her devotion burned with a heat that outshone any simple sense of duty. Rion was stunned. Before he could protest, she swept him into battle. As her nervous laughter faded, the night captain arrived with the impact of a lightning strike. Screaming his name, the veteran's patience had clearly evaporated months ago. He roughly adjusted the boy's grip. For the 1,000th time, he barked that true mastery required infusing every strike with raw mana. Failure didn't matter, he claimed. Mana once grasped was easily reclaimed. The old man still believed in him. That heavy loyalty stirred a quiet guilt within Rion. For months now, he'd been honing his skills in shadows. Upside down controlling his pulse, he pushed his limits using the forbidden art of body domination. An Adion killing technique, meant to mask one's physical vitals, was now just a tool for basic training. Fearing discovery, a ghostly green aura flickered around him, making his very form shimmer and shift unstable. Forcing the skill at his current rank was messy. One wrong breath and the entire illusion would shatter. Yet progress was undeniable. His experience, endurance, and raw power were steadily climbing. Recalling his previous grind, Rion excused himself to bathe. Alejandro tried to block the boy's exit. Rion brushed past him. Alone, he realized the spell remained dangerously volatile if handled carelessly. One slip-up and domination would break him. His status screen flashed Rion Sermon Level 3. His stats climbed with perfect balance. 3 months of grueling secret work were finally showing fruit. Once every stat reached 20, the real grind would begin. He plotted his future with surgical precision. He'd reclaim the ghost job, then max out necromancy and assassin ranks. This time, he would rewrite destiny. While carrying towels through the hallway, he stopped cold. Alejandro was waiting just ahead. He was talking to a stranger, a guest. Then it clicked. This was Trino Hilder. Trino stepped forward, his polished facade, barely masking the sharp tension radiating from within. The manager bowed smoothly, his cloak grazing the floor, as he greeted Rion with practiced elegance. After a shallow apology for the intrusion, Rion wordlessly took the offered scroll from him. Its weight made his expression twitch. Trino's arrival didn't align with his memories of the past life. Regardless, the timing was uncanny. He'd come to deliver a message. Rion slowly unfurled the parchment. The paper crinkled in the silence. A hauntingly familiar deadline stared back, drawing a heavy sigh from him. The cycle was repeating. Inside was a formal summons, the birthday celebration for Prince Darren. Prince Kyle Darren. This very event had once triggered the brutal downfall of House Sermon. Rion's jaw locked as visions of a blood-soaked future flashed before his eyes. December 1892. The exact day his world shattered. His fist tightened around the scroll. Steel entered his gaze. This time the pieces wouldn't scatter. This time he'd be the one moving them. A vital piece of the puzzle clicked. This was the trigger for his family's ultimate destruction. Now he held the reins. Reality shifted. Morning light hit his face as he woke in a carriage. The road ahead looked deceptively peaceful. Trino offered a thin smile, noting how deeply the boy had slept. Rion grumbled, blaming Colin for obsessing over his travel gear until the early hours. He looked outside. Colin was still following behind, weeping openly. Someone had to physically hold her back. He sighed. Her loyalty was touching, but she couldn't come. Neither Alejandro nor Sina were making the trip. Only Rion and Trino remained. A monster surge near the dark zone had pulled Alejandro to the front lines. Meanwhile, Madame Sermon had summoned Sina. Thanks to the border chaos, Rion was now the only option. At just 12 years old, he was now House Sermon's sole representative to the capital. Trino tried comforting him. He insisted there was zero danger. No one in the kingdom would dare touch a Sermon bloodline member. Rion suppressed a bitter laugh. That untouchable status belonged to the Sermon family of the past. Back then, any member could attend. But now with their influence crumbling, the family head had to go. Their decline left no room for ego. He accepted it. He was the one who steered them here. Trino gestured toward the horizon. A massive silhouette was emerging from the morning haze. The capital city, Dabaron, glittered under the rising sun. Their carriage approached the gates. Pristine roads and vibrant fields stretched out, looking completely untouched by the kingdom's rot. White towers appeared. The citadel loomed ahead, its pristine walls gleaming as the carriage breached the gate. Guards stood in rigid, perfect formation. A royal reception awaited them. Gliding forward with effortless grace was the kingdom's second prince, Kyle Darren himself. He welcomed them with a warm smile, using the prestigious titles the Sermons once bought with blood and sacrifice. Truno offered a formal bow, voicing gratitude for the royal hospitality. Rion mirrored him, keeping his composure perfectly, but internally he scoffed. Hospitality, a trap was more likely. Ever since passing the outer gates, he felt the city's heavy gaze. Intense scrutiny followed them. Shuttered windows hid gossiping mouths, their hushed tones dripping with morbid curiosity and fake pity. Every onlooker saw the carriage and instantly linked Rion to his crumbling noble house. He ignored the toxic whispers, stone-faced. The rumors had spread like wildfire, just as he'd planned. The citizens' frantic muttering confirmed his new identity, Rion Sermon, the legendary loser. Even among high-ranking nobles, he sensed the same biting mockery hiding behind their forced, polite smiles. Their judgment clung to him like a shroud, fueled by the smug certainty that the Sermon family was finally finished. Rion mapped every sneer and hidden glance easily. They were all dancing to his tune. Everything was proceeding exactly as calculated. With a nonchalant nod, he brushed off the noise, flashing a bright, seemingly clueless grin at the judgmental crowd. It was the perfect mask for his cold intellect. Stunned nobles exchanged confused looks, whispering frantically behind gloved hands. Truno winced in sheer embarrassment while nearby socialites giggled. Rion simply wondered how long this idiot act should last. Inside the fortress, his escort knights slumped over a table, nursing bowls of soup. They were exhausted and stressed. They grumbled about their early arrival, reminding themselves that time was needed for Rion to network with other heirs. Instead, the young master had locked himself away. Ever since they checked in, he hadn't left his chambers once. He hasn't even greeted the staff properly, one knight hissed. Their frustration with the young master was reaching its limit. Another soldier groaned that Rion hadn't taken a single step outside. The youngest knight practically broke down in tears. He wailed that the party was starting without them. Food, booze, and beautiful women, yet their master remained a shut-in. Fed up, the captain ordered the rookie to drag Rion out. But the boy found Rion already fully dressed and ready. The rookie shouted the news. The young master finally intended to grace the grand banquet with his presence. Rion stepped into the corridor with absolute confidence, summoning his guards. They had no idea what he'd actually been doing. He'd spent those lazy days in grueling secret training. Handstands, breath mastery, and subtle mana circulation filled his private hours. Every movement was precise and hidden. Now, the banquet was just the next stage. He stepped onto the sun-drenched balcony. Morning light hit his face as he calculated his next move. Attending this event wasn't just to keep his guards quiet. His eyes narrowed, a cold, dangerous fire igniting in his gaze. This was a strategic move, not a social one. He had a mission today that required him to step into the light. Meanwhile, a lavish carriage pulled into the estate. Wheels crunched on gravel as crimson smoke signaled a warning. A true troublemaker had finally arrived at the party. Inside the Golden Hall, the herald's voice boomed across the ceiling. Every head turned as a new player entered the fray. Young Master Sun Faiyan strutted in. Trailed by a small army of retainers, he moved with the ego of a king. He drank in the crowd's awe as if it were his birthright. A flustered Truno rushed over to greet the arrogant heir. Truno whispered that Prince Kyle would be shocked by his attendance. Sun just gave a smug, dismissive laugh. He feigned humility while scanning the room like a predator. But when he asked about Rion, his expression darkened instantly. Finding out Rion hadn't arrived yet genuinely annoyed him. Around them, the guests' gossip began to swirl like thick smoke. They praised Sun's genius, reaching six-circle magic at 15, but the conversation quickly took a much darker, nastier turn. They whispered of his family's shady sacrifices, his arrogance, and his brutal reputation. Rumors of drinking at age 11, and even murder at 12. Sun ignored it with a bored flick of his wrist, vowing to crush whoever spread such lies. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. The herald's voice actually trembled before he screamed the next name at the top of his lungs. The dragon of Drea, Rion Sermon, has arrived. Light flooded the entrance as Rion walked in, looking incredibly composed. He looked nothing like the hopeless loser Sun expected. Sun's pupils shrunk as the entire room's attention shifted toward Rion. Once again, the Sermon name commanded the room's respect, effortlessly eclipsing Sun's carefully crafted grand entrance. Shocked gasps followed Rion's every step. He didn't look like a failing noble at all. He looked like a god. He carried his family's pride with regal ease. Sun's jaw clenched as pure, unadulterated jealousy burned through his veins. The sheer radiance of Rion's presence was infuriating. Even here, the loser was making Sun look like a background character. Every eye was on the sermon heir. Rion finally stepped forward, bowing smoothly and greeting Sun as a peer. He dropped Lathas's name, making Sun's face darken instantly. Sun forced a smirk to mask his irritation. Sun claimed he knew Rion well, mocking him with Lathas's jab that Sun Phaeton was an absolute freak. Rion brought up the academy, how Sun's toxic rep traveled faster than he did, including that brief, chaotic meltdown. Those few months left a permanent stain on his honor. Sun's jaw clenched while Rion continued his verbal assault. His tone was soft, yet each word sliced deep, listing Sun's history of bullying and tormenting defenseless girls. Rion detailed the atrocities like he was reading the weather. Sun shifted from sheer discomfort to bone-deep, trembling rage. Rion held his ground. Truno stepped in to defuse the bomb, claiming the young master had urgent business elsewhere. Before leaving, Rion casually mentioned a forgotten message from the captain. Sun stood there, frozen in utter humiliation. His aura flared dangerously. Rion walked away without looking back, a subtle mocking grin tugging at his lips. Sun finally broke. He snarled Rion's name like a deadly venom, his eyes burning with pure, unadulterated fury. Ugliness radiated from him as he shook with violent intent. From the darkness, Rion watched the spectacle unfold. His gaze turned predatory and cold. He silently dared Sun to get angrier, wanting that rage to bloom fully. He wanted that fire to consume him, for Sun's anger wasn't a threat, it was a weapon Rion controlled. Under a bruised midnight sky, ice shattered across the floor. Sun hissed Rion's name like a forbidden curse. Rion's lecture dripped with years of pent-up irritation. Sun couldn't stop thinking about the boy who haunted the academy. Even Ross, Rion's brother, was fully aware of the dark truth. He always saw right through the lies. Sun didn't leave school willingly, he was kicked out. Phaeton's influence had only managed to keep it quiet. Though the elite buried the scandal, the disgrace followed Sun like a ghost. He was forever stained by it. When Rion brought up the knee, that shameful injury, Sun swore to bury. The man's entire body went rigid. The memory flooded back as Ross's sharp voice pierced the silence, bringing the past crashing into the present. Ross condemned him for crossing the line. Sun stuttered pathetic excuses, claiming he didn't know the girl was taken. He insisted he was just being polite to a noble, but Ross's gaze remained colder than a winter blade. He reminded Sun that status didn't matter. He was a student who used forbidden magic to terrorize a girl. Ross's final ultimatum was brutal. Kneel and beg for mercy or die, stripped of your noble title. Sun's world shattered. His breath hitched as the suffocating weight of the threat crushed his very soul. His pride broke like glass. In total defeat, he dropped to his knees, cornered and utterly broken. As magic shimmered around his witnesses, Sun retreated from the memory, trembling as he returned to the real world. He tried to focus, telling himself Rion was just a pawn. The grand plan could not fail now. The real target was Ross's sibling, the one he had to eliminate. Yet he couldn't escape the looming truth. Rion was dragging him toward a cliff. Shivering Sun forced himself down the long, dark palace corridors. A mysterious hooded figure led him to a massive door, ordering him inside. Sun obeyed, heart pounding with resentment. He froze as he stepped inside. This wasn't a meeting with minor players. The person waiting was a true titan. Standing there was Truno Hilda, the legendary chief steward, who held the weight of House Sermon in his hands. Outside, the night grew heavy as the sermon carriage raced across the moonlit landscape toward its destination. Inside, Rion sat in calm silence. A faint smile touched his lips. Everything was going exactly as he planned. The banquet was a total victory. He had buried his old reputation and emerged as the perfect, disciplined heir. Sun had swallowed the bait whole. Rion reflected on the night's success, knowing Sun fell right into his trap. Truno appeared soon after, praising Rion's masterful act. He claimed Rion had finally brought hope back to the house. Rion took the praise calmly, though he noted he had traded a peaceful alliance for a war with Sunday. He had sparked a feud instead of making friends. Truno just waved it off with a satisfied, knowing grin. The steward admitted that watching Rion humiliate Sun was the most satisfying thing he'd seen in years. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. Rion's eyes sharpened as a terrifying surge of power erupted from his body. Truno stumbled back in shock. Rion ignored his confusion, his cold gaze locked onto the steward's trembling form. He demanded to know why Truno was soundproofing the carriage, repeating the steward's own suspicious words back at him. Regarding that flickering spark of hope, his voice turned to ice. If you truly believed in Sermon's future, Truno, you wouldn't have betrayed it. That single line shattered Truno's mask. Panicked, he demanded to know exactly how deep Ryun's knowledge went. Ryun didn't give him a straight answer. Instead, he acknowledged that desperation drove Truno's sins, offering him a final shot at redemption. He commanded the steward to listen well and discern the truth for himself, just as he had always done. The carriage rolled under the silver moon as tension peaked. In the shadows, Ryun whispered his master plan to Truno. Truno froze in pure shock. Ryun's words felt like a razor-sharp edge pressed against his jugular. The boy leaned back coolly. With legs crossed, his composure was bone-chilling. Truno's face collapsed into a messy cocktail of terror, guilt, and regret. Choking on his own breath, the steward stammered, desperate to know how the young master had pulled all the strings. How could you even conceive of something so reckless? He trembled already, dreading the answer he knew was coming. Ryun's eyes narrowed like daggers. He didn't need to shout. Truno just kept chanting "Young Master" like a broken record. The dam finally burst, leaving him in a state of terrified awe. Tears shimmered as his hands clawed at nothingness. He wanted to cheer, uncertain if he was witnessing a divine miracle or a monster's birth. Ryun watched him grinning. Ryun saw the choice written on the man's face. Shifting his weight, he addressed Chief Truno with chilling ease. He announced they'd already bypassed the royal road. A cold shiver spiked down Truno's spine. How could this child smile right now? Then it hit him that wasn't a normal smile. It was something predatory, something that froze the marrow in his bones. It was a grin soaked in pure bloodlust. Suddenly, the carriage lurched as a wheel shattered, sending the escorts into a frenzy. "Why have we stopped?" someone screamed. Then the atmosphere shifted. A knight gasped, one terrifying word: poison. A shadowy figure emerged from toxic mist wearing a twisted painted smirk. Blinding arrows of light suddenly shredded the darkness. As the front line collapsed, the desperate cry of ambush rang out. Soldiers scrambled, forming a perimeter around their young master. But these weren't ordinary arrows. They were surging with mana. One mistake meant certain death. Golden barriers flared to life. Mages desperately cast shields against the relentless barrage. Despite the carnage, the knights rose, roaring with righteous indignation. They screamed that no one dared strike House Sermon and live. The enemy should be crawling, begging for their lives. Their pride shattered when the second wave hit. Orders were barked for everyone to stay back, even allies. The defensive spells were so volatile they'd shred friend and foe alike. Panic peaked as the carriage began to vibrate violently. The mana glow warped unnaturally, and in a heartbeat the young master was gone. Terror spread faster than the magical arrows. An eerie radiance flooded the forest. The captain's voice cracked as he looked up in pure disbelief. "What is this?" From the shadows, Truno emerged on horseback, his overwhelming aura slicing through the fog like a broadsword. Ryun's body hung in midair, bathed in swirling arcane energy. Ancient darkness began to coil around him. Reality began to warp. His senses twisted, followed by a cascade of physical anomalies stacking upon one another. It felt like he was being forged for something unimaginable. Finally, he opened his eyes. Too much time had ticked away. They'd layered on way too many enchantments. By now, the sermon guards would be in total shambles. He remembered it all. His previous life flickered before him, the desperate search, his family's brutal downfall, and the total ruin after his abduction. But this time, he held the cards. He saw a golden opportunity within the carnage, an event he could manipulate and weaponize. Ryun laid out his cold-blooded strategy to Truno, his mind already 3 steps ahead of the brewing war. He detailed the plan before the first arrow even flew. Truno shuddered, caught between paralyzing fear and awe. The boy's logic was surgically precise. "Choose Truno," he offered. "Is this Sermon's end, or our glorious rebirth?" He knew the other nobles were terrified of Sermon's rise, and would eventually unite to stomp them out, so he'd fed them rumors to lower their guard. The Phaeton family, however, had bitten the hook a little too hard. They'd already dispatched assassins. Ryun's eyes glowed a predatory crimson as a sharp, cruel smile cut across his face. If they wanted war, he'd use their own hate against them. Truno continued to shake, overwhelmed by the boy's dark genius. Once more, the young master posed the ultimatum. Would this be their ultimate collapse, or the start of a new era? As the final abnormal curse shattered, everything was proceeding perfectly. He looked up his power, surging to the surface. Truno trembled while carrying Ryun's weight, his lips moving in a frantic, silent string of apologies. Though barely conscious, Ryun's voice remained steady. "Stick to the plan," he ordered, leaving zero room for doubt. Truno swallowed hard, realizing that following this terrifying boy was his only path to redemption. Shackled mana exploded. Emerald radiance engulfed him as his hidden potential surged. Glitches shattered one by one. His attributes peaked, awakening a dormant sixth sense. Ryun remained unfazed. The initial requirement for his ascension was finally complete. Shadowy figures lurked amidst moonlit ruins. Suns arrived, smirking at the prize his men secured. He applauded the crew, stunned that House Sermon's own steward Truno Hilda actually showed. He'd arrived personally carrying Ryun. Truno stayed silent, head low as Suns began his taunts. Suns ridiculed him for betraying his master. Truno swallowed the shame. Then the villain stepped closer. He barked insults, likening the man to a rabid dog. Treacherous curs should bleed in silence. The scroll appeared. Truno had bartered his entire life for a single secret. It came from Asan's legendary network. Hidden within was the truth Truno craved above all. Leads on the Sermon family's missing bloodline. Yet even with the location, he was powerless. The cost was astronomical. The wealthy Phaetons would always hold the winning hand. With the deal sealed, Sun's Phaeton waved him off like a common peasant. He promised Ryun's safety with a wicked smirk. Foolishly, Truno clung to that fading hope. The steward pleaded for mercy. Sons nodded smoothly, though his cold gaze screamed pure deception. Truno retreated, fueled by desperate duty. The heir simply watched him vanish into the dark trees. A lackey suggested execution, but Sons declined. House Sermon would handle the traitor soon enough. Why dirty his hands? He turned to Rion, grinning about the grand scheme now in motion. The boy was the final piece. Sons gave a chilling nod, eager to finish the job himself. A blur of movement cut the air. Sons struck hard, catching Rion, who had stayed there by choice. He stared down his betrayer. Above, the moon shifted, signaling the start of a darker act. Sons gripped Rion's hair, sneering. "Do you finally understand how screwed you are, brat?" A heavy blow pulverized Rion's stomach. He gasped for air, yet his gaze only grew sharper. Emerald sparks flickered in his eyes. Sons cackled, his face contorted with sadistic joy. A Sermon noble, chained like a dog, he paced excitedly, savoring the boy's absolute misery. Rion spat his name. Sons bowed mockingly, treating the torture like a staged play. He bragged about snatching the Sermon's precious air, then leaned in close. "Know what's next?" Sons asked. Rion glared back, earning a sharp laugh from his captor. A cruel smile widened. He brought up the banquet disaster, impressed by Rion's dangerous knowledge. At Lars's name, Rion flinched. Sons smirked, sensing a weakness he could exploit. He whispered about Lars's secrets, then dropped a bombshell. His smile sharpened like a blade. "He wants your family dead." Crimson stained the floor. Sons demanded to know Rion's secret plan. "You dare defy Phaeton." He rained blows down, screaming that Rion was a helpless victim of fate. Betrayal. He cackled like a maniac. "Truno traded your life for a handful of lies. He sold you for crumbs. You're alone now. This kidnapping is the match that starts the war. House Phaeton and Sermon will burn, and you're just the fuse." Rion spat out bloody saliva. "You talk too much," Rion hissed. A violent green spark ignited in his gaze. Sons froze. Rion's mana erupted. A complex magic circle ignited beneath them, drenching the ruins in emerald light. Sons stumbled back, horrified. He couldn't process the sheer power. Rion whispered coldly, "I've waited for this since Drea." Sons stammered. As the light peaked, then total silence. Silence. Sons smirked confusion, turning to relief. Had the boy's ultimate move just failed? A bluff to buy time, Sons barked. But Rion looked up, his eyes burning with malice. "I warned you. You talk too much." Suddenly, shadows coiled like a noose around Sons' neck. His words turned into a wheeze. He clawed at his throat, as terror finally gripped him. He couldn't chant a silence array. Rion's trap had effectively crippled the heir's magical core. Every spell failed. Rion's voice dripped with mockery, asking Sun how it felt to be a powerless mage. Cornered Sun gambled on a chantless fireball, the last desperate trick up his sleeve. Violet flames surged in his palm, but Rion didn't flinch. He yawned, calling the move utterly basic. A mere second circle spell was child's play. The blast hit, but Rion absorbed the impact without moving. As the system flashed his resistance, Sun desperately unleashed a high-tier third circle strike. Rion just smirked, mocking his attempt. Mana swirled violently as he caught the fireball midair. Sun's heart sank as brilliant blue light flooded the area. His spell was being dismantled. Total mana disruption. His magic shattered like glass. Rion explained that high-level mana was simply nullified. It was game over. Every move Sun made was being countered before it even formed. Sun lunged with a mana blade, but the energy disintegrated against an invisible wall of force. Blue aura coiled around Rion's arms. Sun watched trembling, wondering if this was a bluff or his end. Rion raised his hands with terrifying composure. Mana threads began to snap the remaining binding spells. The chains fell away like paper. Rion warned him that the real show was just beginning. Magic circles bloomed around his wrists. His voice was ice as he revealed he wasn't limited to 2 circles. A third circle manifested, crackling with raw electricity. Lightning roared, slamming Sun into total paralysis. Agony ripped through the chamber as the current charred his skin. Rion watched with cold, dead eyes. Another high-voltage pulse sent Sun into convulsions. He was helpless as Rion loomed over him. The blue energy flowed over Rion like a calm sea. He told Sun to look at his new reality. The hunter had become the prey. Sun blacked out, eventually waking up bound in heavy iron. Rion sat nearby, casually spinning Sun's own dagger. He joked about having to wake him up manually. Sun fought against the cuffs, terrified that his own restraints were being used against him. He realized these weren't mana seals, just cheap metal. He thought he could still cast magic. Before he could chant, blue lightning tore through his soul. His screams echoed into the abyss. His body buckled as if his bones were being crushed. Where was the magic circle? Rion chuckled darkly. Did Sun really think he'd leave a mage's hands free without a plan? He pressed the blade to Sun's cheek, revealing the horrific truth carved into Sun's own flesh. Sun's jaw dropped in horror. His chest was covered in glowing, intricate scars, forming a circle. This was the Forbidden Blood Circle, a taboo art that turns living flesh into a catalyst. Rion reminisced about performing this same ritual on a 12-year-old boy years ago. Sun stammered, confused. How could someone without mana use such high-level forbidden arts? Rion cited past life memories from Adion. He had mastered a secret mana link method to skip levels. Every skill has a blueprint. By injecting mana into a player's circuit, any skill can be forced active. As a former master, Rion remembered every single circuit of every skill he'd ever learned. He thanked Sun for being the perfect test subject. The circle would now amplify his agony. Sun's screams hit a fever pitch. In the distance, the feedback caused a massive explosion. He begged for mercy, but Rion wasn't listening. He knew Sun was just a desperate liar. This was the work of House Phaeton's elite shadow unit killers who thrived in the dark. Broken and bleeding Sun insisted his words were true, but Rion's eyes remained hollow. A violent surge of energy erupted from the mark. Sun's body arched in a final agonizing scream. Rion didn't blink. He told him to scream all he wanted. No one was coming to save him. Sun called out one last time, but Rion was gone, busy layering defensive circles for the next wave. House Phaeton's elites would arrive within a week. Rion began setting the ultimate trap. Precision was everything. 1 week later, the elite squad finally touched down at the site. They confirmed the location, reporting that the young master and Rion had vanished inside a week ago. With no signs of life, they had no choice but to summon Lord Aki to investigate. Has anyone else breached this sector, he demands. The soldiers insist the perimeter remains untouched. They swear every entrance was locked down. Shadows flicker as Phaeton's elite agents delve into the misty cavern. Cloaks hiss against the jagged stone. Their leader scoffs. The disturbed entrance confirms his worst suspicions. He strides forward, violent purple aura swirling like toxic smoke. The others instinctively recoil from his pressure. Gripping his blade, he decides taking the sermon brat alive is a task only he can handle. Lethal intent fuels his steps. Mana coils tightly around his frame as he approaches the hidden chamber's threshold. He cold-bloodedly reminds them, the Patriarch's decree is absolute. Not even blood relatives get a free pass. Silence hangs heavy as the barrier shatters. I'm going in alone, he declares with chilling finality. Dismissing his squad, he descends into the corridor. His rhythmic footsteps echo like a death knell. As magical residue clings to his boots, his instincts scream. Something is wrong. An ominous vibe saturates the air. Strangely, there is no mana trace. He scans the walls until the ground beneath him suddenly erupts. Reflexes kick in. He instantly raises a shield as arcane energy swirls. Linked magic circles he analyzes grimly. These traps are precise and tactical. Whoever set them knows this dungeon's blueprint, like their own hand. Every path is a minefield. He wonders if it's the sermons or a hidden player pulling the strings. The complexity forces him to double his defenses. He quickly maps the web of traps choking the hallway. No time to disarm them. More seals flare up ahead as he charges forward with reckless speed. I don't know who you are, he growls. But challenging House Phaeton here is a death sentence. Rust groans as the iron door swings wide, exposing a crimson trail leading to a bound captive. The boy is mangled and blood-soaked. Above, a violent blast erupts as Akai shatters the ceiling. He crashes down chains, snapping instantly. Desperately, he screams for his young master. Pulling him from the wreckage, Akai freezes. The boy's chest is a cavity of raw magic. It's Sun's, Phaeton's own aura, but his scorched flesh is beyond anything Akai imagined. The realization hits, this is Sun's. Akai scans the floor, spotting lethal trap circles everywhere. A mastermind rigged every exit. Sun's clings to life by a literal thread. Subdued but not taken. This wasn't a kidnapping. It was bait for a deadlier game. He secures Sun's, eyeing the silent shadows for the invisible threat lurking nearby. Staying is suicide. Rion is still missing, and his rescue team must be close. Danger saturates the air. Akai sharpens his focus, refusing to drop his guard. He decodes the ambush patterns. Despite the risk, he won't abandon the mission now. Sun stirs his eyes, locking onto Akai with pure venom. Suddenly, Rion strikes. A high-tier binding spell manifests, swirling with light to paralyze the target. Akai hesitates, too cautious. In that split second, a figure plunges from the darkness. A blast throws Akai back. He retaliates only to realize he's hunting a ghost. The spell recoils, wounding him. Rion reappears, flanked by a sea of phantoms. Rion scoffs at the blunder. Akai stabilizes, channeling a massive illusion-shattering pulse. The Master of Deceit roars, unleashing a purge to wipe the fakes away. Mana ripples through the room, cracking the atmosphere as the truth is revealed. Violet lightning screams. Raw, unbridled force tears through the deceptive wall of clones. The phantoms melt like mist. Before the light fades, Rion launches his counteroffensive. He's a blur of emerald mana, slicing through the chaos with predator precision. Akai's senses fail him. By the time he reacts, Rion's gaze is already upon him. Cold and calculating eyes gleam. Rion vaults into the air, spinning in a lethal arc. Green energy hammers down. Akai blocks, but the impact rattles his very soul. Fury flares as Akai wobbles. Suddenly, a shadow lands perfectly at his back. A blade carves through his throat. Crimson mist paints the air in a brutal arc. The strike is final. Blood gushes as Akai's voice dies in a wet, hollow rattle. Disbelief clouds his vision. Sun's mangled face looms close, dripping with gore and hate. Emerald fire burns in his socket. He watches Akai's ego crumble into the dust. His voice is a deathly whisper. He asks if Akai truly knows soul magic. With chilling poise, he reveals the truth. Sun's is a passenger in his own skin. The no-kill order was his leverage. He knew Akai would hesitate just enough. The runes on his chest glow, a masterpiece of agony and soul-warping geometry. Sigils for claiming and swapping hum. This magic was never meant to protect. The real trap is sprung. While Akai chased shadows, Rion prepared the killing blow. Mana backfires like a furnace. He endures the burn until Akai is completely trapped. A massive detonation hits. Akai is launched, slamming into the wall like a broken doll. Flames dance in the debris. Rion rises from the embers, bloodied but unyielding. Emerald sigils pulse with victory. He looms over the fallen finger, whispering his defeat. The swap is permanent. He downs a potion, his wounds sizzling as system alerts flash. Pain resistance spikes. Wiping the blood, he grumbles about the sheer agony. A necessary sacrifice. He needed Akai's mark on him to trigger the next phase. He throws his head back, laughing. A finger of Phaeton has finally been broken. He annihilated the seventh circle beast, claiming a cold victory. Sun now inhabits Rion's body, soul, and flesh misaligned. Let's call him Rion for simplicity. As he celebrates, a system alert suddenly flashes before his eyes. Quest cleared. Level increased. Rion pauses, analyzing the quest mechanic while feeling his newfound power surge. His level rockets from 2 to 15 instantly. Rion knows this massive jump is the direct result of slaying Akai. Still, he hesitates. He wonders if the system quest played a larger role in this sudden power spike. No time for doubts. He hauls Ake's lifeless body into a cold chamber to begin the next phase. Rion explains that mana circuits are etched into the soul, allowing him to wield magic despite this broken vessel. He floods the prepared circuits with raw mana. Instantly, his level begins to drop as the energy drains away. The system alerts him, level decreased by 5. The price for manipulating his soul has been paid. Hidden conditions met. Rion unlocks the Shadow class, an elite hidden assassin path designed for total lethality. The transfer is ready. Rion smirks, realizing his current level allows him 2 more shots at this dangerous ritual. The magic circle ignites hungrily, devouring the surrounding atmospheric mana. Blinding blue light fills the room. Violent energy swirls around him as he triggers the next high-stakes sequence. Screens flicker, job change successful. Rion has officially ascended to the Necromancer Advanced class. Hand of Death confirmed. Spectral cards merge into his spirit, expanding his dark arsenal as he checks the results. Success. Slaying Peyton's lackey gave him more experience than anticipated, fueling his rapid growth. He calculates the odds. If the third job change lands, he will become truly unstoppable. Utilizing his remaining levels, he pushes for a hidden class. The ritual's intensity reaches a boiling point. The Ghost class image hovers above. Its synergy with his assassin skills is absolutely perfect for his lineage. He analyzes the conditions, focusing on the sense stat, which remains independent of his soul's current capacity. Overloading soul circuits is a massive gamble. One slip means soul collapse, but the potential payoff is far too tempting. Hesitation is for the weak. With a cold gaze, he begins the final grueling attempt. He pours everything into the circuit. The system burns 5 levels, and a violent backlash slams into his consciousness. The world shakes as the ritual hits its breaking point. His eyes snap open, enduring the chaotic energy. Agony sears his spirit. The system screams warnings of soul damage, demanding he cease the ritual immediately. His sight fails. Nightmare visions of past deaths claw at his mind as the ritual tries to devour him. He grips his sanity, forcing the spell forward. Even as his physical form cracks, he refuses to back down. Seizing control, he shoves his final reserves into the circle. He will obtain the Ghost Advanced class regardless. A final explosion of mana erupts. The spell stabilizes, and the system window confirms his absolute triumph. His soul is vast enough. The hidden class choice appears shimmering with forbidden god-tier potential. A sealed option shatters open. A new card emerges, the Phantom, the ultimate evolution of the Ghost. He stares at the name, a class unheard of even in Arden. The Phantom's silhouette looms behind him. This spectral power dwarfs his skeletal guards. The system links the 2 classes, confirming a true evolution. Covered in blood, Rion wears a chilling smile. He has finally secured every ounce of power he ever craved. Returning to the altar, he eyes Ake's corpse, now soaked in thick, suffocating layers of dark energy. He notes how the Ghost passive exponentially buffs a necromancer's core power. His target, the 7th Circle Archmage, he slaughtered for this purpose. He begins the ultimate channeling. He prays the vessel holds. If this works, he will skip months of planning in a single heartbeat. He invokes the Lich Creation skill, a forbidden art usually restricted to necromancers above level 70. It is possible only because of the 9th Circle mana still dormant within Ake's cold, lifeless vessel. Suddenly, the mana shatters. A red failure screen hovers before him, mocking his grand ambition. Lich creation failed. However, the system offers a darker alternative, the activation of a special undead. Rion's eyes widen. Pure abyssal energy ripples outward, tearing through the very atmosphere of the room. Shadow tendrils erupt like living serpents, swirling as the corpse dissolves into a vortex of obsidian mist. The floor trembles as space itself contorts. From the spiraling void, a massive armored figure emerges in total silence. Bathed in a regal violet glow, the system signaled victory and prompted Ryun for a name. A pillar of light erupted skyward, rocking the entire estate. Akai's hooded sentries spun around in sheer terror. They barked for explanations, frantically hunting for the young lord they were bound by blood to shield. Rionan's heir stumbled through the haze, his scorched rags tattered and burnt. His stride remained chillingly calm. He moved as if hauling the ritual's heavy aura. The guards stood paralyzed, their voices trembling with fear. Looking up, he gasped out a shattering truth. This entire massacre was Akai's doing. He hurled the blame at the knights, screaming that a Phaeton traitor had stabbed him in the back. His broken body sold the lie, yet he mocked their inability to grasp the full situation. He claimed he'd snared the young master with a relic, though the magical bind was only temporary. Then he declared he'd escape with Ryun's sermon, leaving the rest to serve as mere distractions. Mounting his steed, he commanded the squad to hold the line while he retreated to the family. "Help is coming," he lied. "Stand firm and your loyalty will be paid in gold and glory." The minions felt the pressure and mobilized, watching him vanish into the pitch-black woods. Flash to a military outpost. The knights logged this as the final trace of the missing heir. In the command hub, Sir Pyres narrowed his eyes. As a 7th Circle Archmage, he smelled a rat. Finding zero signs of Akai, he growled in fury. He crushed the useless reports into a ball. If this intel was legit, they were in deep trouble. He interrogated the soldiers standing before him. Were they the only ones who saw the carnage? A robed underling stepped up and nodded. Suddenly, a masked blade cut him down. Steel shattered, and the man collapsed in a pool of blood. Pyres didn't even flinch. He kept talking over the dying man, fixated on the young master's disappearance. A Phaeton high ranker was linked to Ryun's abduction. If this leaked, total war was inevitable. A guard lunged with a bared sword, but the shadow figure didn't blink. The mage struck first. In one blur, the mage was disarmed and tossed aside. Through the biting frost, the stranger stepped out. A silver-haired warrior emerged. Bathed in pale moonlight, it was the legendary Alejandro. He mocked their defense. Beneath the moon's glow, he vowed to slaughter every last soul present. Pyres hissed that trespassing on rival soil was an open declaration of war. "Give me Ryun," Alejandro growled. Piers countered that Phaeton was already drowning in suspicion. A week after Rion vanished, a border fort burned alongside a mysterious subterranean crypt. Facing off, he claimed Phaeton's sudden arrival looked like a desperate cover-up. Piers snapped that the Sermon Patriarch's location was a mystery even to them. Even Phaeton's own heir had vanished. He demanded they work together to find the lost lords. "Shut your mouth," Alejandro barked. As Piers' temper flared, the silver warrior closed the distance. "Freeze. Nobody touches this crime scene." Frost swirled around his fist as he primed his power. Auras erupted. Alejandro and the crimson-haired Pyrrhus locked eyes as the air grew heavy with mana. Static yet lethal. Their clashing energies warped reality. High above, Truno watched the tension escalate. He spotted Phaeton's army and prayed the fight wouldn't blow up before his mission was complete. A masked fireweaver plummeted from the sky, cutting him off. "Traitor," she spat, wreathed in flames. "If not for the master's order, you'd be charcoal. Now keep your mouth shut," she hissed. "The Lord promised a signal," Truno muttered. Together they scoured the dense thicket for any clue. Can a trace even exist here? If it were that simple, those Phaeton mutts would have found it. They pushed deeper. Only Sermon's secret earth-refining art could sniff out a trail this faint. He succeeded before, so the resonance must linger. Sena unleashed a wave of emerald energy. The mana blanketed the ground. Suddenly, a spark flickered, then pulsed with steady ancient power. Her eyes sharpened. There, a geyser of brilliant green light burst through the forest floor. It shot up like a monolith. Truno stood awestruck. What on earth is this phenomenon? He stared at the body, suspended in that toxic green light. The forest around them fell into a deathly silence. Malevolent energy coiled like a tightening hangman's knot, hoisting the figure until his silhouette dissolved into the glare. Sena and Truno stood frozen as the aura throbbed. A withered, lifeless face emerged from the light, looking completely hollow. It was Rion, maimed and barely recognizable. A single line of runes burned across his skin with chilling precision. A grim message manifested, "I am the kidnapper, please punish me." Suddenly the magic snapped and his body collapsed. The vibrating tablet clattered onto the grass. Sena's gaze sharpened as she snatched the artifact with a predatory flick. Her mask reflected the emerald flames as she scanned the text. Truno pressed for news of their lord, but she stayed silent. She spotted a glinting parchment buried in the ritual's wreckage. As she unfolded it, a hidden seal flared to life. The young master's voice echoed in her mind. He had plotted to dismantle the Phaeton family from the inside, but facing the Patriarch's soul magic was a death wish. Returning as Rion Sermon would only trigger a total bloodbath. War was inevitable, a battle the weakened Sermon estate couldn't survive. So he chose to vanish into the shadows. This letter was his final gambit for Sina. She devoured the words, while Truno loomed anxiously behind her. Her mind raced as she finished. With a spark from her fingertips, the evidence turned to gray ash. They had to return home. The flames of war needed to be smothered. Far away, at the crack of dawn, a solitary bird pierced the morning sky, soaring as if burdened by 1,000 unspoken secrets. Its shadow swept over the city streets where a boy named Lion navigated the crowd. A voice hailed him. He kept moving until the summons hit. The guildmaster demanded his presence immediately. Simultaneously, in another district, Senna adjusted her mask, finally locking onto the trail. A cold, certain confidence settled over her like a shadow. Her lord was still alive. The boy turned, revealing a glowing emerald eye filled with draconic fire. The legends weren't hype. He was the dragon of Drea reborn, walking the earth once again. 3 months flew by. The capital city, Peyton, flourished under clear skies and booming trade. Yet dark rumors swirled beneath the peace. A brutal feud between the Fethans and Sermons had barely been averted. Citizens gossiped freely. A Fethan traitor had supposedly snuffed out the very last Sermon bloodline. Word was, the Sermons took the payout and gave up. Some whispered their leader had deserted them long ago. Their house was crippled. To the greedy elders, the compensation was worth more than a lost child's life. In the middle of it all, Rion, now living as Lion for 3 months, slipped through the masses like a ghost. He absorbed every stray word. But the real truth lived in the dark, winding through the city's grimy corners. There, the Assassin Guild's sigil hid from the sun. Lion ducked into a narrow alley, leaving the light behind. He reached the Panaton branch headquarters. Inside, the air was thick with talk of blood and recent executions. They whispered about Alejandra's ruthless justice against a steward who had served the fated traitor. Sapphire, the branch commander, kicked back in her chair and tossed the latest reports aside like trash. It was all old news. Her associate grunted over his drink, still fuming about the messy public execution. Sapphire let out a long sigh. Why would a legendary swordmaster waste time on such grunt work personally? The heavy door groaned open, and Lion stepped inside. Sapphire offered the boy a razor-sharp, cool greeting. He stayed stone-faced as he approached. When she asked if he sought the leader, he gave a simple nod. Bathed in amber lantern light, she declared that today was the day. She produced a wax-sealed envelope. She challenged him to grasp its weight. This was his official ticket, a formal recommendation to the guild. He was now an official member of Martin. Lion just smirked, noting he still had one final hurdle. Sapphire grinned. His first true bloodbath was next, though she doubted it would even make him break a sweat. Could a test even challenge him? Behind her, the Martin banners rippled, featuring twin dragons guarding the crest. They were the 4th largest guild, founded by House Mount AK. Lion stood before her, silent and unshaken. She scanned him with narrowed eyes. Reaching the final exam in just 2 months was absolutely insane speed. Lion took a seat. She began praising the monstrous talent that had surfaced in her branch, a true rising star. He'd climbed the ranks faster than anyone in 100 years. Lion remained stoic, the letter near his hand. She tried to play it cool, comparing his growth to her own rank as a legendary A-rank assassin. Lion reacts with his signature coldness, offering no praise while his unreadable gaze remains fixed on her. Sapphire notices his sharp edges have softened since their first meeting, but Lion stays silent. Clutching her warm mug, she reflects on how 2 months have already vanished since he arrived. At this shadowy assassin guild, a place hidden from the world, he had appeared like a ghost. Cash in hand and zero hesitation, Sapphire vividly remembers the moment he walked through the door. A drenched boy with heterochromatic eyes dropped a heavy pouch of gold, like it was worthless scrap. She felt a strange shiver then, sensing this client was unlike anyone she had ever encountered. In her entire career, his request was the most bizarre. A beggar-looking kid walked in like a king. Carrying a fortune, he demanded the head of Ryun's sermon. Naturally, her curiosity was piqued. Lion simply grips the sealed letter again, choosing to read in solitude as she steps back. He requests a summons once the trial is ready. After he leaves, Sapphire checks the sealed entrance. As she tests the heavy hinges, a presence draped in violet smoke flickers behind her. The figure materializes fully, questioning if she admitted the boy based on nothing but a hunch. His low voice reminds her of the protocols, but her mind remains fixated on the boy's progress. He had mastered an entire assassination curriculum in 1 month, a feat that usually takes years. Carl reports the investigation results. The boy, known as Lion, possesses no family name or history. Distinguished by blue hair and emerald eyes, he was an orphan raised by a nameless master. When that master vanished, the boy joined their guild, seeking answers, even demanding a lethal mission. To verify his worth, Carl revisited the isolated shack where the boy and master once lived. Fresh tracks confirmed someone stayed there recently. Sapphire shifts her focus back to the main mystery. She wonders if Lion is actually Ryun's sermon. Carl recalls the details of the missing noble heir. Ryun vanished at the exact moment this mysterious boy of the same age appeared at their gate. She questions if it is mere coincidence, unsettled by the timing despite the statistical impossibility. The masked man asks why she is overthinking. Ryun's sermon was a talentless loser with 0 mana. His life was a string of failures and constant pressure. He was the ultimate disgrace of his bloodline. There was no way he and Lion were the same person. Carl offers to keep digging for truth, but she shuts it down. She refuses to waste an elite agent on something so seemingly insignificant. She orders Carl to hunt for the master's identity elsewhere, while Lion sits in silent meditation. Emerald energy swirls around him. Sapphire knows if his master truly trained him, he is a monster. Lion overhears this through his magic, noting the woman's intuition is dangerously sharp. Necromancy is truly a cheat. Using souls to gather intel from afar, he summons his status window to reveal his updated stats. Ryun's sermon's attributes have returned. He confirms his heavy investment into body domination was worth it. It did not just mask his looks, it completely erased his mana signature from any detection. The skill was now strong enough to fool elite assassins. Suddenly, a phantom began to materialize. Swirling with eerie violet energy, it waited for a command. He whispered a name, Kornak. The creature roared, its presence surging, as a player system displayed its strength, agility, and magic. Everything was laid out in cold detail. Lion watched his growing undead power finally reach its peak. The creature's form hardened within a purple frame, evolving like a living weapon under his absolute control. He realized this was the true essence of a phantom. He raised his hand, green circuits glowing. Beneath his skin, the magic pulsed with its own sentience. He noticed a unique anomaly in his summon. It was a detail missing from every skill description. He decided to dive deeper into the circuit. A veil of light rippled between them. He mirrored the phantom's stance, and his own circuits ignited. The magical patterns began to echo one another, aligning as if the skills were holding a conversation. Something hidden stirred deep within the creature, and a sudden surge of mana forced a new screen. A status frame flickered into existence before him. An unexpected quest window had finally appeared. This impossible anomaly shimmered before him, a radiant riddle etched in light. He studied it with cold precision. It felt exactly like those secret quests players used to hunt down, the thought of a mission buried deep. Within a monster's skill circuit seemed insane, yet the proof pulsed right there. With Ache finally dead, the system notification flashed anyway. The Hand of Death Phantom and twisted quest logic merged into one, birthing the entity known as Kornak from the chaos. For the moment, Kornak was just a flashy novelty, an XP-leeching beast that ate more experience points than it actually provided. But he knew its real value would shine once he reached higher power tiers. Right now, though, beneath the moon's frigid glare, his gaze swept across the city's skyline from atop the examination tower. A voice suddenly shattered the silence. The instructor approached, curious about what held his attention in such a place. He admitted he was visualizing his success, passing this trial and finally becoming an official guild member, perhaps even leading the marathon branch one day. The instructor chuckled, noting that, at his insane growth rate, that dream wasn't far off. He then revealed that 3 candidates were competing today, all hungry for a single spot. Only one would survive the cut. With a solemn gesture, he declared the final test to crown the newest recruit, the next 5th grade shadow. The rivals emerged from the darkness. First was Paula, silent but radiating lethal focus. Then came Lip with eyes like daggers. The 3 hooded trainees stood bathed in moonlight as the evaluation commenced. He barked for the intel report. They responded instantly. Al Raj, age 47, a wealthy merchant with a legitimate shop. He has 3 bodyguards, 2 bronze-tier fighters, and 1 silver-tier mage. Rumor says he visits his mistress every evening. Their recon was thorough. He enters her room at the same time daily, while his guards keep their distance. The master praised their prep, but pointed out a fatal flaw. Tonight is the strike, yet nothing is guaranteed. If the target breaks his routine, can they handle the fallout? Could they take those guards? They hesitated. Silence was their answer. He reminded them, the guild provides intel for these gaps, then turned his gaze toward Rion. Rion stepped up to deliver his findings. With a smirk and icy confidence, he asked, "Is this really necessary?" He pointed out that even if they worked together, only one would walk away with a guild badge. Since it's a winner-take-all game, Rion saw zero logic in handing over his hard-earned intel to rivals. A trainee scoffed, asking what that made the rest of them. His teammate mumbled about them still being comrades. Rion shot back. That friendship wasn't in his training manual, shocking them both. The master nodded in grim agreement. He explained this was an individual test of raw talent, but the real key was something else entirely. They had to apply their lethal training. Real assassins either exploit people or eliminate them when they're useless. Rion's cold logic was the mark of a true killer. Any objections? The master asked. The others stayed silent. The instructor finally gave the green light. The hunt is on. Kill the target by any means. As they vanished into the night, he noted one stood out. His mind drifted back 3 months to a strange request. They couldn't believe they were hunting a child, but Sapphire laid out the brutal details of the contract. 13 elite killers were mobilized, 10 third grade and 3 second grade pros. They had only 72 hours. The hunt was locked within Peyton. Winning meant massive gold, but losing meant taking Ryan in as a special trainee. Joining Marathon as a trainee, the trainer thought the leader was tripping 3 days was an impossible deadline. He told Ryan to run, bragging he'd find him in 10 minutes. But that team eventually crawled back in defeat. Ryan's tactical traps were purely genius. Keeping his word, the superior officially began the boys' hellish training that day. He pondered the stakes. Joining Marathon's ranks was a nightmare, and this target was the toughest one yet. Hand-picked by the branch leader, he realized he was watching history in the making. As the test intensified, Ryan sprinted forward and crashed through a window with lethal grace. Glass shattered as he touched down perfectly. With a cold smirk, he confirmed the security alarms were now dead. Magic or machinery, nothing stopped him. He'd already ghosted past the elite mercenaries without making a sound. But extra guards were a surprise. Intruder, they roared, giving chase while Ryan watched calmly from the shadows. As the guards scrambled toward a distraction, Ryan called Paula an idiot. Her failure was his perfect cover. Because of her loud mistake, his path was clear. If she hadn't been snagged, things might have been harder. Exposure was inevitable. Analyzing the chaos, he noted the target had survived a literal mountain of past hits. Historically, whenever blades started flying, the target's only panic room was his wife's private chambers. Inside, his wife spat venom, screaming that his infidelity was bad enough without inviting killers into their home. He desperately claimed innocence, swearing the room was a fortress. She stayed silent, letting him dig his grave. While he pleaded his case, a hidden trainee observed from afar, noting the security had been drastically buffed. Mercenary numbers had spiked. He tracked the elite guards who hovered around the target like shadows. Scanning for threats, he clocked 5 grunts nearby. A frontal assault, risky but definitely doable. He gripped his steel. Suddenly the man bolted toward his wife, hollering in sheer confusion. He barked at her to drop the weapon before things got ugly. Her response, she was done playing nice. Remembering his fake promises of love, her knuckles whitened on the hilt. This was her breaking point. She slammed him for leeching off her family again. He stammered some weak excuse about needing business capital. She cut him deep, revealing she knew every cent went toward flashy trinkets for his mistress. The blade sank home. A guttural scream was cut short by crimson spray. She stood frozen, horrified. The weapon clattered down as blood stained the floor. Disoriented, she whispered, "Nonsense," her mind fracturing. Her strength evaporated. With a final wail, she keeled over his corpse as a dark pool expanded beneath them. Chaos erupted outside as guards yelled for the mistress. Meanwhile, lurking in the dark, the trainee watched. He realized the target was neutralized by his own wife. Was this a win or a total bust? Lion was missing, which felt suspicious. By sunrise, the trainee was perched atop the fortress wall. Mission failure seemed certain. Alrock died by domestic dispute, not their blades. Yet Lion just stared at the roof. The girl trainee arrived, shocked to see him already there. How did he beat everyone to the punch? The master confirmed Paula's safety, explaining that the mansion had devolved into absolute internal carnage. That chaos provided the perfect exit. Plus, the master revealed a bombshell. The mission wasn't a failure at all. Confusion rippled through the ranks. But the master doubled down. This kill was officially counted as a success. The mastermind was Lion. The master presented the receipts, proving Lion orchestrated the entire hit. Lion manipulated the wife into the executioner. All eyes turned to him, demanding to know his secret. Lion paused, sensing their expectations for his cold silence. Finally, he decided to spill the tea. He agreed to talk. The girl gasped as the narrative shifted to reveal the cold, hard truth. The pieces were simple: Alrock, the mistress, and the scorned wife. The real trigger was the marriage. Under a blood-red sunset, Lion began dismantling their confusion. She suspected he had inside info. Did the boss give him a head start on the target? Lion shrugged, claiming he got the name when they did. Besides, Alrock was local celebrity tier in Rainton. Finding him was easy mode. The trainee noted Alrock was just a glorified booze distributor. He had a fresh mistress, and the intel on her bedroom security was spot on. Lion admitted he'd finished the homework before the mission even started. Raising a finger, he noted that, while they were busy brainstorming kills, he was already executing his master plan. Both trainees were stunned. She asked how he moved so fast. Lion smirked. He hadn't just scouted Alrock. He'd profiled every high-risk target and villain in the city, building a massive database of death. Flashbacks showed him blending with locals, extracting secrets from merchants and commoners alike. He lived for the tea. 2 months was plenty of time to create detailed blueprints for every kill. This allowed him to lock and load the second the target's name dropped. They realized he wasn't just taking an exam, he was playing the long game. In his research, Lion found someone with a burning soul-deep hatred for Alrock. That person was his wife, Kelly. Scenes of her systematic torment and broken spirit flashed by. Cloaked in shadows, Lion approached the broken woman and whispered a terrifying proposal. Mentioning the guild struck the trainees like lightning, leaving them reeling in shock yet again. Alrock was a total nightmare, tormenting his wife while flaunting his mistresses right under her nose. He bled her family dry for business ventures, fueling a hatred in Kelly that flirted with murder. Lion reveals his move. He advised her to hire mercenaries, supposedly for safety, but really for terror. While Alrock cowered in fear, Kelly twisted the chaos to frame the mistress for a secret affair. She expected him to crawl back, but Lion noticed Kelly surrendered to the plan far too easily. Her judgment was blurred by wine, but Lion had one more truth bomb: the mistress's lifestyle was funded entirely by Kelly's family. Watching this, the trainee realized the terrifying truth. The entire exam was a puppet show, and Lion was the one pulling every single string. While the candidates bought the story, the trainer's eyes narrowed. One crucial detail didn't fit. Anger is one thing, the trainer noted, but a civilian housewife committing brutal murder, that's unlikely. Lion's expression remained cold. He'd spiked the house liquor with a sinister, mind-altering potion. The brew was a ticking bomb, designed to cloud judgment and shatter self-control at the perfect moment. It fueled a primal rage, turning the mercenaries into rabid animals. Lion calmly brushed his forehead. "I simply didn't want my own people ending up as corpses," he stated, making the trainee stiffen. The trainer realized with a shiver that every single beat had unfolded exactly as Lion choreographed. Driven by betrayal, and fueled by the potion's madness, a vengeful Kelly delivered the final blow. Assassination isn't just about the blade, it's the setup. The trainer declared that Lion had passed. Lion wasn't done. He demanded his full commission plus a special bonus from Kelly's estate. He laid it out. Kelly was now a murderer. To the world, only assassins had breached the walls. Only the guild held the secret that Kelly had plunged the knife in a potion-induced frenzy. To keep her hands clean, Kelly would pay any price to frame the guild for the kill. The trainer stared, realizing Lion played a game the others couldn't fathom. The trainees watched, awestruck. In the world of shadows, Lion was a master strategist. No one wanted him as an enemy. The trainer dismissed the others. Once the room cleared, a heavy, suffocating silence fell between them. He signaled Lion to stay. Lion remained like a statue, waiting for the lecture he knew was coming. "Do you realize what you've done?" the trainer demanded. "Because of you, that woman will carry the crushing weight of murder forever." Lion's gaze didn't waver. "I thought she was innocent too." But Alrock's mistresses didn't just leave, Lion revealed. Kelly personally disposed of every single one. Alrock was a monster, and Kelly was his silent accomplice, until things spiraled beyond her control. Alrock was bored of her, yet he kept feeding her victims, knowing the bloody fate awaiting them. Those disappeared women were erased, buried under the immense power of Kelly's noble family. The victims' families live in absolute terror, too broken to ever seek justice against her. "I dug up these skeletons during my intel sweep," Lion continued. "Exam or not, a job is a job. It was an assassination contract. The guild only gets paid when the target takes his final breath. Assassins aren't judges," he snapped. "We don't weigh the morality of the target or the client's story. If conscience stops you, you're in the wrong business." Killing for gold requires no mercy or questions. Kelly never refused to kill him. She just weaponized the guild to hide her own blood-stained hands. Since the guild's shadow loomed over Alrock's final breath, the mission is officially a success. If you want to play hero instructor, get stronger, strong enough to change this rotten world. Seeking a conscience in an assassin's guild is a fool's errand. In this world, nothing changes. With those words, he vanished. Later at the guild hall, Sapphire met him with an approving smirk. "Welcome to the ranks. You're now an official member of Martin, and a legendary 5-star assassin." Before he could respond, the system pinged. Quest complete. But a new notification descended. A golden chime announced his massive level up. The room fell silent, eyes burning with fear and curiosity. System alerts flooded in, stacking up like a digital tower of secrets. Lion ignored the pings. Sophia's professional mask returned as she detailed his rank. Expecting apathy, she droned on until Lion's hand rose, cutting the air silent. He echoed the rules with terrifying precision. Sophia faltered as the room murmured. He dissected the protocol like a cold ledger, demanding the Alrock mission's true price. That question struck harder than magic. Sophia's composure shattered into a shaky reply. 10 gold, now 10 later. The crowd buzzed as Sophia mentioned the hidden bonus, blood money for a cover-up. The trainer froze, cold sweat beading on his brow. His face turned ghostly. Denial choked him as Lion lowered his hand with intent. Lion conceded the test's necessity, then coldly claimed credit for the completed contract. Mission cleared. Bonus collected. The trainer recoiled, his secret exposed to all. He pivoted to the promotion. 30 gold earned in one shot. He didn't blink. He backed her into a corner. Her breath hitched in fury, but Lion didn't stop. She snarled, eyes burning with rage, then froze as he signaled his next move. Lion rank 5 officially demanded his rank 4 promotion. The hall went deathly silent. She glared, but he remained unmovable. Her aura erupted like a gathering storm. She loomed over him, hunting for fear. Lion just met her gaze, cold and unwavering. "Arrogant brat," she spat, accusing him of spitting on the guild's prestige. The crowd held their breath. She barked a reminder about blood pride and hierarchy. The legend of the guild was built on rules. She pointed a finger at him. "You've ignored everything," she shrieked. Only hard results matter here, and you're lacking. Technically isn't enough, she warned. Your ego will get you killed. Request denied. She tried to brush him off, ordering rest. Leon's voice cut through. No, I'm not backing down. Before she erupted, the trainer stepped in to intervene. He requested the floor, citing his supervision. She nodded and he dropped a bombshell. The boy is ready, he stated. This isn't ego, it's pure, undeniable skill. He'd been hiding something. The manager whipped around, demanding to know his secret power. Raw physical dominance, the trainer replied. No schemes, no tricks, just lethal instinct. But the trainer warned Lion won with brains before not just brawn. The rank 4 exam is different. Strategy alone won't survive the physical hell ahead. Her eyes drifted to the pits. Finally, a chance to see Lion's true colors. She'd break him. The watchers grinned, recalling the lethal traps that awaited the cocky. With a sharp exhale, she relented. The rank 4 promotion exam was officially on. Prepared or not, she whispered, leaning in. Men die in that arena. Do you understand? She challenged. Lion didn't flinch. Their handshake sealed the pact. The deal was inked in blood. Later at the tavern, the teacher grumbled. You're a chaos magnet, he groaned. That was too reckless. The blonde trainee watched. He has a reason, she insisted. Got a plan, Lion nodded. The test was coming. It's months away. As drinks arrived, the teacher warned a target must be found. I'll train you, he offered. Lion declined. I'm going to rest, he said. Rest, she questioned. Lion clarified he was leaving the guild behind for a while. I'm a full member now. I can roam. The teacher nodded. It was his right. I'll be back for the exam, Lion promised. I'll check the Martin branch schedule. The man pondered. Leaving the guild already? Is this really your play, Lion? Lion gave a sharp nod. Then we drink, the man roared, ignoring the scolding. Rion realizes this brief peace is a fleeting luxury. Once he hits rank 4, the grind never stops. High-tier contracts are relentless. In the branch head's world, rest is a word that doesn't exist. The exam is looming, so he makes his move. Leaving the gates, he stares into the untamed wild, the dark zone. He tightens his cloak against the chill, stepping into the literal domain of death. Suddenly, a noble carriage emerges from the gloom. Armored riders flank it like a wall of steel. They scan the fields, oblivious to the predator watching. The lead knight slows, spotting a lone figure. A boy sits by the road, eerily still. The knight's brow furrows as suspicion turns into sharp tension. He trots forward, clearly annoyed. It's just some brat wrapped in a tattered travel cloak. Most kids would flee from armed steel, but this one doesn't flinch. The knight barks for answers. Rion limps into the moonlight with practiced grace. His hood falls back, revealing weary eyes and blood. His voice is soft and steady. He claims a twisted ankle left him stranded and begs for aid. The lie is flawless. He plays the victim with a level of calm no ordinary traveler possesses. Facing the blades of nobles, he adds a desperate edge. Would a knight really kill a child? He acts like they're his saviors. The knight sneers, calling him a bold, audacious little brat. He threatens the boy for blocking a noble's path. But Rion is unfazed, reading him like a book. He dismantles the knight's excuses with cold precision. Their lack of urgency betrayed their secret. Their route made no sense for official business. Every word pierces the knight's pride like a dagger. The man's arrogance shatters instantly. Then Rion delivers the final blow, clasping his hands together. He puts on the innocent orphan act, eyes shimmering as he begs for a shred of mercy. The knight is speechless. Total silence. Then a voice from the carriage cuts the air like silk. The noblewoman orders Canil to bring the boy inside. Canil snaps back immediately. Absolutely not. She softens the request. If the carriage is off limits, the boy will ride on horseback instead. Grumbling, Captain Canil hoists Rion up. He settles the boy right in front of his saddle. A fellow knight snickers, saying the nanny look suits him. The captain's response is pure salt. Canil demands a name. The boy introduces himself simply as Rion, from the land of Phaeton. He uses his real name but keeps Sermon hidden. He's far from gold territory, no masks needed. He offers a polite nod, claiming he owes the young lady his very life. The captain grunts, telling him to be grateful. Rion just flashes a knowing, subtle smirk. But this wasn't luck. Every step was calculated. He was hunting the crest of the Rose family. Saintine Rose needed an escort, and Rion intended to be that shadow. He had scouted these roads for days, hunting for threats. He knew their paths would eventually collide. The Rose family had been living in shadows, hiding in the remote corners of Finestroy. But after her family met a sudden tragic end, Saintine became a ghost on the run. Her guards aren't true knights, just frontier mercenaries loyal to the Rose name. Exile gave them titles, but not skill. One man sighs over the lady's heavy burden. Rion absorbs it all. He's finally pieced together the puzzle of her family's downfall. The head is dead, and Saintine is banished. How deep does House Sermon's rot truly go? The captain wonders if Sermon is the real culprit. Another knight whispers a dark rumor. Rumor says House Sermon assassinated the head to bury the evidence of their betrayal. Rion's eyes sharpen at the claim. Night falls, and the camp settles under the cold moon. Fires crackle as knights stay vigilant. Some cook, some sleep, while horses huff in the dark. Rion leans against the wagon, connecting the dots. The intel he gathered today is explosive. The Rose family's ruin was a casualty of war, a clash between House Sermon and Phaeton, Dargon versus Finestroy. The tragedy started when the Rose heir took a post near the border. He became a knight for Sermon in the Dark Zone. That single choice sealed their fate. Monsters slaughtered the heir. Servant vowed to protect the fallen Rose family. House Anil fumed at their rise. They began plotting with the treacherous Phaeton. Tensions boiled over into murder. Rumors linked the heir's death to this rivalry. Was it a setup? Some whisper, Servant staged the massacre to hide secrets. The truth finally surfaced. House Anil had orchestrated the heir's brutal end. Their cries for justice failed. Phaeton's power was now far too absolute. Stripped of status, the Roses fled. Their only choice was exile in Dargon. Sir Kennel remained loyal. He and a few others refused to abandon them. A desperate journey begins. Danger lurks in the silence of the night sky. While the lady sleeps, Kennel warns. Anil's second son has eyes on her. That creep was staring. House Phaeton and Anil are the true rot here. Their asylum was no accident. House Servan brokered the deal with Baron. They gave their last breath. Servan used everything left to save the Roses. A toast to Servan. The men laugh, hiding their fear behind empty bowls. Soup for Rion, he accepts. The knight worries he's bored, but Rion's intrigued. They have no idea. Rion's ties to House Servan go deeper than imagined. Traveling with targets, Rion just chuckles, keeping his true motives hidden. Kennel seems lighter now. Venting his frustrations helped clear the captain's head. Lady Sainton suffers most. Rion watches her, sensing a much darker threat. These knights are clueless. They don't feel the shadow closing in on them. House Anil isn't finished. They won't stop until every rose is buried. They want the sun. Assassins have already declined such a risky hit. He's a paranoid monster, a coward who only hunts the weak and helpless. Guards surround him constantly. If he wants Sainton, the danger is extreme. No time for camping. Rion slips away, confirming they are being followed. Should he kill them? No. Traps are much more efficient for this. Covered in dirt, I slipped, he lies. They buy his clumsy excuse. Trap set. Intel gathered. Rion prepares to sever ties with the group. Their debt is settled. One bowl of soup for their lives. Fair. Parting at the fork. Why head toward the Dark Zone, kid, they ask. Just a simple peddler. He's flipping monster parts in Dargon for profit. This is goodbye. Kennel hands him a gift from the young lady. Medicine for his wounds. From the carriage, she watches him in silence. He brought us peace, she noted. Rion grips the red vial tightly. Kennel offers a final out. Find us in Baron, if you're ever desperate. Don't come looking, Rion warns. The soldiers smile at their captain's heart. He's a good man, even if he's a bit too prickly sometimes. Get moving, Kennel roars. Rion walks away, examining the mysterious red vial. He drinks it down. Behind him, the thunder of hoofbeats grows louder. 6 riders approaching fast. 2 mercenaries, 2 swordsmen, and 1 troublesome mage. The atmosphere shifts. Dust rises as the true threat finally shows itself. Anil's son screams his name. A manic grin cuts through the chaos. He rides like a beast. Pure cruelty and hunger burn in his eyes. Rion braces himself. Their gazes lock. Predator and prey finally meet face to face. He slips away effortlessly. Landing lightly, he prepares to end the chase. These guys were elite. Far tougher than expected, breezing past his traps, and all for a single bowl of soup. The absurdity was almost comical. Frowning, he held up the drained vial. That elixir alone cost 20 silver pieces. Pure madness for a chance meeting. She'd tossed it to a stranger, then bolted to save her own skin. Whatever that girl was thinking escaped him, but the Rose family stood on the edge of a total bloodbath. Invaders would seize the heir, slaughter the rest, and label it tactics. He let out a low, weary sigh. High price for soup, but with the potion included, it felt like a deposit. Chasing the cavalry directly was too slow. People would die. Instead, he stepped into the luminous sigils igniting beneath his boots. Verdant light swirled like waking spirits. Below lay an ancient collar, a blood pact older than kings and empires. He whispered to the entity lurking within, "Lend me your power, and we'll settle this in a heartbeat." Magic pulsed, tearing the air open. Within the circle rose a lean figure, eyes piercing, draped in emerald flames. Rain raised his hand, the spirit mimicking him like a twin from the abyss. This would be Cornac's debut. As the escort slogged toward the mountains, horsemen began encircling the carriage. Captain Kennel stole a glance backward. Speed was essential. He warned the lady they were accelerating, urging her to endure the rough, violent jolts ahead. A knight questioned the sudden rush. The captain's reply was grim pursuers. A massive force was breathing down their necks. He barked orders, signaling the border ahead. Knights Chaku and Gaion were commanded to escort the lady immediately. Push for the border. Once there, even the Ani family wouldn't dare lay a finger on her. They wouldn't risk clashing with the Baron's guards. "Go now," he commanded. "I'll hold them off alone." The knights promised a rendezvous at the frontier. He knew real chivalry existed only in the high heavens. A man knighted by fluke, yet still a guardian of House Rose. Suddenly, the pursuers emerged from the dust. He stood his ground, demanding why they dared hunt House Rose. He ordered them to turn back or die. Defiance would cost them their heads. One hooded rider simply laughed, mocking his words with a chilling, arrogant sneer. Taking our heads, they ridiculed him, asking if a cheap title really made him think he was a threat. Kennel recognized the man, Garuta Ani. The lackey warned his boss about being careless with his identity, but Garuta didn't care. They were leaving no survivors anyway. He commanded his men to seize the lady now. They roared in agreement and charged. Kennel screamed, desperate to block their path as the chaos erupted. A massive explosion rocked the earth. A mage Kennel realized in horror they were facing at least second circle power. Garuta decided to handle the knight personally. Knight versus knight, though, the outcome remained the same, certain death. Then Kennel saw him, Captain Saiso. Why was the former leader of the Rose Knights fighting for the enemy? The answer was simple: gold. With the Rose family falling, Saiso refused to starve. It was time for business. He wanted a real show. Saiso lunged steel, clashing against steel. Kennel demanded to know what happened to his honor. Saiso scoffed. Chivalry was dead in Fenestria. The world had moved on, leaving old ideals in the dirt. He swung again, telling Kennel to surrender. With his skills, he could serve a much more powerful lord. Kennel spat at the traitor's offer. The enemies laughed, assuming the lady was already safely in their clutches. Saiso offered a cold apology before his final strike, but a sudden violent blast sent him flying backward. Shocked, Saiso scrambled up, searching for the attacker. A green vortex ripped open, revealing a glowing ethereal silhouette. Eyes burning with power, the entity slammed into Saiso, melting through his armor. Energy spiraled as the figure, known as Kornak, gathered devastating force. They surged forward, drowning the field in a storm of emerald sorcery. Panic gripped the enemies as the blast consumed them. Saiso felt poison searing through his very veins. As the aura thickened, the spirit and the boy Rain moved as one. A single terrifying presence reborn. Time to pay up, he growled. A heavy thrum shook the air and a nearby soldier's visor shattered instantly. In the distance, a man crumpled into the dirt, blood staining the road. Another followed, his body broken. Trapped behind a wrecked wagon, surviving knights trembled. The air was becoming a thick, toxic fog of death. One gasped that this power was impossible to block. They watched the assassins close in like hungry wolves. Their orange hoods drifted in the wind. They looked bored, as if the hunt had already lost its thrill. One gestured with his blade, telling them to crawl away like the pathetic prey they were. Their knightly pride was the only thing keeping them upright as the fatal strike loomed. A chillingly calm voice shattered the silence as Lady Saintine Rose emerged from the burning ruins. With her tattered dress and eyes veiled by her crimson hat, she thanked her fallen protectors. Suddenly, she pressed a blade to her throat, bargaining her life for the survival of her people. She threatened to end it all right there, knowing their master couldn't afford to lose his prize. The killer sneered, mocking her status and reminding her that failing to reach Aeron stripped her of everything. Without her title, she was nothing. Fear gripped her as he swung his steel with murderous intent. He vowed to show her the true terror of a mono-wielder's wrath against those who dare rebel. He seized her, pressing cold steel against her neck while her knight screamed in helpless desperation. Out of nowhere, a shadow descended, crushing the attacker's skull in a violent, bloody explosion of force. Saintine gasped as the hooded stranger pressed the attack, ruthlessly driving the remaining enemies back. The bleeding man barked for a name, but Rion only mentioned settling his debt for some expensive potions. Deciding these trash kills weren't worth much, he carelessly kicked the man aside like literal garbage. He turned to Saintine, demanding immediate payment for his supplies, leaving her completely stunned. When he brought up hiring a Martin assassin, she could only stammer the name in utter disbelief. The villain couldn't fathom why the legendary Martin house would ever lift a finger for the Roses. Realizing his elite lineage, she desperately offered 30 gold, earning a sharp smirk for her quick thinking. But there was a catch. He ordered her to record the terms as he laid them out. That measly sum wouldn't even cover the knight's head, much less the family's treacherous second son. He scoffed that even a high-ranking three-circle mage wouldn't work for such a pitifully small bag of gold. Ignoring the fallen knight's curses, Ryan pressured Saintine to sign the contract before he walked away. If he abandoned them now, her last hope for survival would crumble into nothingness. Tightening her grip, she threw caution to the wind. To save her bloodline, no price was too high. With trembling lips and cold sweat, she finally surrendered, promising him every single thing he desired. As she begged, Rion accepted, and a terrifying green aura began to spiral around his body. The enemy hissed about an assassin, showing his face, mocking the basic rules of his deadly trade. Rion laughed it off as a coward's excuse. True masters of death never leave witnesses to talk. In a flash of motion, he silenced the man forever, leaving only a spray of crimson in the dirt. Saintine watched in awe as Rion savored his first true contract, where the prize was her legacy. Claiming everything the Roses owned demanded a brutal display. The dying man barked out in final defiance. He sneered at Rion's confidence, but the assassin merely asked who exactly was left to stop him. A blade lunged from the shadows, but Rion slipped past, skidding across the earth with predatory grace. The The knight jeered at his defensive stance while his comrade warned him not to underestimate their foe. This was a monster from House Asani. Rion stood, his body crackling with a menacing emerald glow. The duo launched a coordinated assault, boasting that his contract with the roses would be his last. Their synchronized blades danced to kill, but Rion simply growled that he was done listening to them. Suddenly, a system alert flashed. Body control activated. His perception heightened as his muscles coiled with power. Body acceleration online. He became a blur of green light, leaving the knight swinging at empty air. His partner screamed for coordination, desperate to reform their defense against the untouchable ghost before them. Too late, Rion whispered, gripping the man's face. He had already infected them with a cocktail of debuffs. Blindness, weakness, and madness took hold. The knight realized too late he was facing a terrifying curse master. He shrieked, accusing Rion of necromancy, just as a visceral explosion of gore painted the battlefield red. Rion tore through him, commanding him to taste the agony of every life lost to the Rose family. The scream faded into the dawn as light touched the mountains, revealing a battered caravan by the shore. Amidst the soot and carnage, Caniel scrambled toward his lady, his voice breaking through the heavy silence. He stepped forward, scanning the survivors for injuries. Saintine's face instantly lit up, her voice trembling with relief as she called his name. Overwhelmed with emotion, she watched him in silence, while Caniel rushed to stabilize Cyan and Shaku's condition. After confirming they were safe, the team revealed the captain crushed their pursuers. Ryun reminded them of their original rendezvous point. Tension spiked at the border. Caniel mentioned a mysterious mage's intervention, but Ryun had already decimated both the traitor and the sorcerer. The Garada captive was hauled in. Suspicious glares turned toward Ryun, questioning his involvement. Suddenly, he manifested a glowing magic circle. He slammed the prisoner into the dirt with crushing force. Caniel demanded answers. Saintine revealed the boy was actually a deadly assassin, an agent from Martin. Caniel's suspicions were confirmed. It explained why the enemy mage fell so effortlessly. The prisoner Garada began to panic. He stammered the name Martin in sheer terror. Desperate to survive, Garada begged for his life, frantically doubling and tripling his bribe. Claiming the Rose Woman had manipulated Ryun, he argued the Assassin's Creed prioritized the contract's goal over the client's identity. Loyalty meant nothing. Ryun coldly remarked, the man talked too much. Garada barked that money was the only thing that truly mattered. Before Garada could finish, Ryun's blade flashed. Blood sprayed as the man collapsed. Ryun snarled, asking how he dared insult him. Treating him like some bargain bin mercenary was a fatal mistake. Turning to Saintine, Ryun claimed ignorance regarding the Rose family's specific promises. He warned her that Martin never tolerates missed payments. She should already be well aware of the guild's ruthless reputation. She managed a strained smile. Ryun acknowledged the Rose family's current struggle, stating he didn't expect an immediate payout. He instructed her to formalize the 30 gold contract with Martin. As for the rest of their deal, that verbal pact would remain a secret between them. Saintine nodded officially, accepting Ryun. Rion barked orders to move out. Martin would clean the carnage. No survivors would leave a trace. Tell the border guards bandits hit you, he commanded. The guards took the hint immediately. His cold efficiency was terrifying. Kennel yelled for him to stop, but Rion vanished into a jade light. The knight stared at the empty space where the vortex had just blinked out of existence. He's no ordinary assassin, Kennel muttered, recalling how the man moved with lethal supernatural grace. Since Rion hid his true identity, that summon felt wrong. It radiated a heavy, crushing pressure. It even spoke. In one blurred motion, the creature deleted Kiso and the mage from the battlefield. Only one name fits that level of terror, the legendary necromancer Veda. Is he Veda's disciple? Santin gasped. That legend was supposed to have vanished decades ago. She questioned if he truly controlled the dead. Kennel described a monster that mastered both steel and sorcery, a hybrid of a high-tier mage and a master swordsman. Such creatures are unheard of in Drea. The news hit the knights like a physical blow. Santine whispered the name Veda, her mind racing. Seal your lips, she commanded. This secret is far more dangerous than Garada's corpse. Garada's death will spread naturally, but this secret stays buried. Kennel tried to protest, but she silenced him. Their savior was a ghost in a hood armed with nothing but a single mysterious potion. If he truly inherits Veda's dark legacy, his existence must remain a ghost story. Protect Lord Leon's identity. Kennel realized the lady standing before him had finally awakened. She wasn't the broken girl who fled the castle. Her eyes now burned with a terrifying iron resolve. Can you move good? Get to Finton and hire a real assassin to finish Garada's business. They would follow Rion's script to the letter. Kennel hesitated, but his lady's aura was absolute. I trust Rion's word, she stated. Besides, it's far too late to fear another ambush now. Focus on our survival in Drea. Today, the Rose family begins its climb back to the top. Her declaration sent a chill through the knights. Move out, she shouted, leading the way. She cast a spell to mend the shattered carriage. Glowing circles signaled their final departure. Deep in the forest, Rion watched. A rose is never just a flower. It's a beautiful trap. The thorns are finally coming out. Rion felt a surge of anticipation for the chaos ahead. His mana flickered. He remembered the era that turned dark mages into the world's greatest taboo, the Black-White War, a time when every dark sorcerer in Drea rose to drown the world in blood. They slaughtered millions, obsessed with opening the gates for the Demon King himself. Rocco fell first. Then the demon realm spilled out, turning Drea into a literal furnace. The continent was engulfed in flames as every race fought a desperate war for survival. In the heart of that absolute chaos, a man named Veda emerged from the shadows, a necromancer without a past. He practiced the dark arts, yet he stood against the darkness. He healed the broken and hunted dark mages with the precision of a god. Allies feared his army of the dead, yet they couldn't help but revere his power. He only raised those who swore to serve after death. His soldiers were unstoppable divine shadows. He changed how the world saw necromancy. Under his heel, the demon tide was finally crushed. But when the dust settled, Veda rejected every crown and vanished into the pages of history. Back in the present, Rion smirked. Linking himself to the Veda legend was a masterstroke. Santine Rose exceeded his expectations. She showed the teeth of a true leader during the crisis. I'll return to Drea one day. Saving them wasn't an act of mercy, it was destiny. This wasn't charity. It was a calculated investment in a reputation he desperately needed. Rion's old name was worth nothing. But this new legend, it's just getting started. Leon will become a name that shakes the continent. House Rose is just his opening move. Santine Rose, show me your thorns. He looked forward to their next fated encounter. Frigid winds howl through the graveyard of shattered remains. Rion halts at the precipice, staring into the abyss. He exhales a frosty mist, gauging the time. It has been 12 hours since he departed Daesong Village. Finally, the goal is in sight. Below, a massive crater pulses with an eerie rising cerulean glow. This is the threshold of the Dark Zone's 12th floor. Rion ponders the staggering depth he has descended. He is far beyond the sun's reach now. Yet an unnatural radiance still flickers in this subterranean void. The gloom feels suffocating, ready to consume everything. Untold horrors often erupt from these untamable, shadowy depths. Humanity's shield guarded Drea, while the Sherman clan stood at the vanguard, dissecting the Dark Zone's secrets. This realm is a vertical abyss, a tower and ocean combined. It's a chaotic labyrinth that defies all logic. Drea mapped the limits accordingly. Floors 1 through 6 remain mythical legendary levels never touched by man. Zones 7 to 12 are charted territory. Generally higher floor numbers indicate proximity to the surface world. Here the threats are manageable. Goblins, warped beasts, and hulking orcs dominate this 12th level hunting ground. Rion appreciates the intel he gathered during his tenure with the Shermans. Knowledge truly is power here. This is the ultimate grinding spot. Why chase strays across Drea when the prey is gathered right here? High monster density is a player's dream. For someone like him, this place is nothing short of paradise. Maps and compasses are useless junk in the Dark Zone. Navigation requires sensing the flow of pure mana. Experience points flood in. To Rion, the 12th floor is essentially a tutorial zone for low-level scrubs. This floor is deserted. The twisted labyrinthine geography makes a chance encounter with another human almost impossible. Total isolation means he can finally unleash his restricted powers. He readies his dark necromantic arts for deployment. He kept these skills hidden from the surface. Activating Raise Dead, he watches as skeletal husks claw upward. Low-tier goblin zombies are trash, but they serve their purpose perfectly as disposable meat shields for now. Death's hand triggers, his thralls surge with power, their lifespans extended by his dark will. A battlefield carpeted in corpses is the ideal playground for his mastery. This is starting to look promising. Time for some stress relief. His undead horde lunges, silencing monster shrieks with brutal bone-snapping efficiency. The 12th floor offers zero challenge. His morbid army has already swelled to 30 reanimated corpses. Rion commands the thralls to collapse. As the sickly green glow dissipates, he calculates his current power ceiling. Is 30 really his current cap? He recalls his glory days when he commanded tens of thousands effortlessly. These undead are merely marionettes. Maintaining each thread of control causes his mana pool to bleed out rapidly. His veteran mind is sharp, but his pitiful mana reserves are a massive bottleneck for his grand ambitions. He's here for more than just experience. He needs to find a way to fix his crippling mana deficiency. The solution, the Floor Guardian. In the world of Adian, we call it a boss. Time for hunting. Exhaling deeply, he surveys the carnage. He has already slaughtered hundreds of these goblin and orc fodder. Death's hand levels up. The spawns feel infinite. Even in Adian, such insane monster density was rare. This isn't just a floor. It's as if dozens of nightmare dungeons were compressed into a single space. They collide and vomit out monsters endlessly. Rion eyes a fallen foe, waiting for the regeneration to trigger. Dark Zone inhabitants don't just vanish upon death. They are cursed to revive after a short, agonizing interval. In Drea, some species coexist or form civilizations. They're often regarded as just another sentient race of beings. But these things, they exist solely for carnage. They're the absolute definition of monsters. No point overthinking the lore. Rion checks his stats instead. Mana has increased by 3 points, solid progress. He focuses on bolstering his arsenal. Raise Dead rank increases, signaling a massive leap in his necromantic potential. Subskills evolve. Now he can summon zombies, skeletons, and even skeletal archers to his side. Simple leveling has hit its peak. To truly ascend, he must now find a way to transcend the system. A notification pings Cornac has discovered a choice bone. Curious, Rion turns his attention toward his loyal summon. He acquires a goblin shaman's fingerbone, mana +1. This undead isn't static, it's growing alongside him. Mass-producing trash is inefficient. Creating unique summons like Cornac is better though, such rare specimens are incredibly scarce. Even Aiden failed at this. Rion has a theory, but replicating success is a gamble. These Dark Zone creatures are soulless husks. However, he hasn't come empty-handed. While Garuta Ann's body is for the guild, he has kept the others hidden. Activating subspace, he accesses his private corpse vault. It's time for a dark experiment. If this works, he will achieve the impossible soul extraction. He envisions this power as the ultimate weapon against the Floor Guardian. The 12th floor boss is already legendary. It haunts the Dark Zone's most fragile sector where terrifying rumors spread among those brave enough to venture inside. A unique orc emerges in Sermon. They call it the Human Slayer. Rion watches, sensing the chilling reality of its presence. An alert flashes. Orc Giant Berserker, level 23, the Slayer. He confirms it is truly a monstrous beast. The orc radiates a crushing aura. A system warning confirms Orc Fear has triggered, temporarily draining his vital stats. Another notification signals a successful resist via Blue Earth circulation. He smirked, having arrived fully prepared for this clash. He analyzes the 12th floor's maze-like ruins. In this labyrinth, sheer mobility is the only thing that matters. Surging with energy, he moves. He raises a zombie wolf from the reanimated remains of the Orc Chieftain's mount. It lunges forward. Though it vanishes when his mana fades, this window is plenty to annihilate the enemy. The Human Slayer falters in shock as the wolf pounces. Rion masterfully rides the beast along the crumbling walls. It makes sense why Sermon Knights and Mages must party up just to survive an encounter with this titan. He notices his scattered decoys only fueled its rage. As its blood boils, the beast becomes an inescapable nightmare. Vulnerabilities appear. He strikes, but the gash is superficial. His assassin rank is simply too low for a lethal blow. He triggers wound aggravation. The gashes rip wide open, forcing a guttural scream from the agonized orc. Corrupt energy blankets the orc's frame. Recognizing the curse, he coldly demands it stop struggling and accept its end. The beast bellows its body, erupting in purple fury. It is Berserk, a state that negates pain for explosive power. Realizing a frontal assault is suicide, he feigns death. Dropping low, he begins chanting ancient verdant magic. Emerald circles erupt beneath him. Sluggish undead crawl from the earth, swarming the target in a wave of rot. The frenzied orc thrashes against the encroaching mob. Rion grins. Finally, this feels like a true high-stakes raid. He recalls his failed experiments with Annie's group. Creating a unique undead like Cornac was an impossible task then. Yet he discovered a new path. Channeling dark energy between his palms, he activates undead enhancement to surge his power. The ghouls glow with newfound strength, crushing the orc beneath their weight. The soul sacrifice ritual begins now. Radiance coalesces above the horde. A knight's soul is consumed, supercharging the undead through the dark sacrificial rite. System alerts confirm the knight's skills are now his to wield. Immense power gathers within the summoner's grasp. A mage's soul is offered next. Through this sacrifice, Cornac's core abilities are permanently evolved to a higher tier. Cornac awakens long-lost memories from his past life. Rion summons his loyal general, declaring it is time to lead. He signals the execution. Undead swarm the Slayer, raining relentless blows until they explode into clouds of lethal toxin. He observes the lethal poison triggered upon their death. Even under this assault, the Slayer proves its terrifying durability. Activating Commander's Eye, Rion realizes the Knight's soul allowed his minions to perform far beyond his expectations. Ultimately, these undead are just fodder. They are shields destined to shatter. Poison slowly chokes the Slayer's life away. He waits for the poison to erode the Berserk state. With a sharp command, he sends Cornac into the fray. The Slayer roars as undead detonate against its flesh. Brilliant magic circles ignite, illuminating the dark battlefield. A firestorm erupts. The Slayer shrieks at the incinerating sky as Rion launches a devastating firebolt. He commands total destruction. Flames spiral into a titanic vortex before crashing down in a pillar of absolute purgatory. The Slayer vanishes within the inferno. Explosions shatter the earth as molten fire consumes the beast's very soul. Burning and broken, the Slayer staggers through the smoke. It coughs violently, barely clinging to its fading consciousness. Standing before his undead army, Rion admits the Slayer truly earned its title as the guardian of this lair. He terminates the summon. Green light fades as the undead dissolve into mist, while Cornac stands silent and watchful. As the beast lets out a final weak growl, Rion respects the sheer tenacity that defines the human Slayer. He declares his total victory. Activating Hand of Death, he reflects on the grueling days of secret experimentation. Hand of Death has evolved, unlocking a terrifying new skill. He unleashes Life Drain upon his fallen foe. Alerts confirm he siphoned 300 health and 100 mana. He has hit the absolute limit for his level. Under his current power, the Slayer's body freezes as dark energy ravages its vitals. A final notification appears. The hunt is complete. Because this is his first time slaying the human Slayer, the system prepares its rewards. Massive bonus experience is granted. His level surges upward, triggered by the hidden potential of the Phantom's ability. A 57% chance to reap the human Slayer's soul. Rion realizes he can now harvest named boss spirits. He assumed Dark Zone monsters were soulless, but Lair Guardians clearly play by different rules. 57% is more than enough. Betting on his luck, he triggers soul extraction. Shadowy tendrils rip at the Slayer's essence. Success. The notification confirms the boss's soul is his. As the core stabilizes, Rion frowns. The clarity is gone, yet the fallen body refuses to dissipate. It should have vanished to respawn. Does this mean he can challenge the next one immediately? The Dark Zone won't ignore this. Meanwhile, a mysterious squad approaches the scene of the slaughter. Following the trail, they reach the ruins. The destruction leaves no doubt a massive battle occurred here. The Slayer was executed here. They estimate a strike force of at least 30 warriors. They suspect elite mages were involved. A woman gasps, questioning if such power even exists. A knight remains skeptical. No large adventuring parties or guilds are currently registered in the Dark Zone. No trainee group fits the bill. Even weirder, the attack patterns weren't chaotic, they were surgical. This is the work of a master hunter. A lone human, she whispers in disbelief. The Slayer has been hunted. Without its guardian, the 12th layer's monsters will go on a rampage. They will breach the boundaries. The order is given: mobilize all forces to contain the breach. Who could pull this off? Between the sermon strategy and the environment, even high-tier knights struggle here. A man notices Zhang's grim expression. Zhang brushes it off, urging the team to retreat immediately. His arm is still glitchy from the last fight. Inside, he knows this wasn't a hunt, it's a signal. The time for his mission has arrived. In the distance, a cold blue light pierces the shadows. That's the exit. Rion steps into the 11th layer, greeted by an endless expanse of wetlands. It's a far cry from the 12th layer's front lines. This looks like a safe spot to set up. He invokes Morgue. Purple mana flares as the Slayer's corpse twitches. Normally, this monster should be gone. Bosses usually evaporate after death to regenerate, yet this physical shell is now under his control. A new headache appears, the quest window. Paths of Vengeance and the Assassin glow before him. Necromancer and Soul Paths unlock. His quest list is growing at an insane rate. The first came after Ake, the second in Martin. Now, the third evolution begins. Hunting the Slayer triggered the Necromancer path. Rion dives into the system to check the details. A system alert blares. The Necromancer and Soul Paths are fusing into a single unified quest. Wait, what? Rion freezes as the interface scrolls, announcing a brand new main quest. The Veda Legacy begins. Rion's eyes widen at the word main. The Vengeance path is transforming. Revenge is now his primary mission. Meanwhile, the Assassin path shifts into a specialized job quest. A subquest pops up. Rebuild the Sermon family. The weight of his lineage grows heavier. The Assassin job quest issues a clear mandate. He must secure an official qualification. 4th rank, Martin Assassin. Rion marvels at how much the system has evolved. This system was trash in Drea, but now it feels just like Aedeon. Why the sudden change? A world quest appears: Veda Legacy. Objective: resurrect the human Slayer as his undead thrall. Is this just a fluke? What kind of dark history links the Slayer to the Veda name? A world quest. The last time he saw one was during the God Hunt in Aedeon. Doubts aside, the only way forward is through. He raises his hand, ready to command death. An eerie circle manifests. Necrotic energy floods the corpse. Green and purple light illuminates the swamp. The body convulses as mana twists. Something is off. The flow of power is becoming a torrent. The vortex hungrily drains his reserves. Rion grits his teeth, fighting to maintain control. A dark storm erupts. From the shadows, a towering armored nightmare begins to take shape. The manifestation completes, radiating pure malice. Rion stares. It's a skeleton berserker. He truly expected another Cornix, but this thing is an absolute monster. A system alert chimes. He's finally claimed Veda's legacy by evolving the Human Slayer. A fresh quest triggers immediately. Objective: reach the Human Slayer's true completed form. The price of perfection: a hero's soul. Rion goes dead silent as the weight of the requirement sinks in. He glares at the golden window. All that mana consumed, and this blade is still just a prototype. What a mana sink, he scoffs. Suddenly the forest erupts with the bloodthirsty roars of charging monsters. The skeleton berserker lunges its blade, carving through the beastly horde like butter. Incomplete or not, it's a monster. It shreds regular mobs effortlessly. But the mana drain is exactly as devastating as he feared. Unlike normal summons, this berserker is a permanent fixture. It retreats into the corpse vault instead of vanishing into thin air. There's a massive catch. It demands a constant mana tether, making an undead army impossible for now. But Rion isn't worried. He's already figured out the perfect tactical loophole to maximize its potential. Kornak rains death from afar while the berserker tanks the front. It's just like his old party hunting days in Ideon. Ding death, hand levels up. His mana pool expands by another 3 points as his power grows. Enough grinding. He shifts his focus to the real reason he stepped into this dark hellhole. He ignites the Blue Earth technique. Ripples of emerald energy pulse outward, scanning every shadow for signs of life. The forest falls eerie and still. According to the Aeson family's intel, this area should be empty. This was the last known location of his brothers. He pulses the Blue Earth again, desperate for any resonance. Nothing. Just cold silence. He wonders if they really pushed deeper toward the dangers of the 9th floor. He stares into the abyss. Can his current power actually survive the horrors lurking on the 10th floor? Suddenly his energy flares. The Blue Earth method screams a resonance is pinging nearby. It's unmistakable. Someone else who knows the Sermon family's secret arts is within detection range. 2 figures are approaching. One is strange, they don't move like a typical knight or a mage. Only a fool leaves tracks in the dark zone. The other is a seasoned pro with one glaring trait, a missing arm. Is it actually his kin? Rion hesitates, debating whether to drop his disguise and reveal his face. He decides to stay undercover for now. But before he can slip away into the shadows, a shadow blurs behind him. Well, aren't you just the cutest little thing, a voice teases. Rion freezes in pure shock. Sena, he gasps, as another voice rings out with deep respect. Greetings, young master. It's Chief Steward Truno with Jong standing tall beside him. Truno smiles warmly. If Rion hadn't flared his technique, they might have walked right past his disguise. They'd been tracking his trail, moving as fast as possible to catch up with him. The moment he activated the Blue Earth, they knew exactly where to find their target. Truno reveals the plan. Jong was stationed here as a sentinel, waiting for any ripple in the dark zone. It was the highest honor to be your signal. Jong adds, his voice thick with pride. A twig snaps. From the thicket, a woman steps forward with a presence that commands the very air. You're safe now, she whispers. Rion's breath hitches as he calls her mother. Memories flood back. She was always a ghost, a woman constantly on the run from the family's eyes. He finally gets it. All that time she wasn't running away, she was fighting for the Sermon name. He'd spent his life resenting her absence, his heart hardened by those few brief visits. She says his name, softly reminding him that the legendary Sermon blood flows through his veins. She was desperate to protect her last surviving child. Suddenly, a shimmering barrier wraps around them. Privacy secured, Sena announces. His mother sighs in relief. They can finally speak the truth. Rion glances at Jong's empty sleeve. Jong explains it was a trophy from the Patton family's ambush. That injury became his cover, allowing him to secretly protect the hidden Truno. To the outside world, Truno is a corpse. In reality, he's been hiding deep within the dark zone. Sena built this hidden sanctuary, a perfect base for them to work behind the scenes. Hidden from the Patton family's prying eyes, the true counterattack is finally being prepared. This victory was forged through unshakable loyalty to the Sermon name and the Patriarch's absolute trust. The praise for capturing everyone's hearts makes Rion blush. Then his mother finally breaks her silence. She's heard rumors that Rion orchestrated this entire scheme. As the mother of the Sermon heir, she must know. Who truly claimed Peyton's finger and handed his son over to Sena? Rion admits it was his master plan. She notes that by using Peyton's own flesh and blood as leverage, they forced a desperate mediation. They even squeezed out massive reparations. With their heir as a hostage, the Peytons were cornered. They had no choice but to swallow their burning rage. His mother acknowledges Rion as the architect of it all. Then she looks him in the eye, asking if he's truly her son. Rion firmly declares his identity as Rion Sermon. He might not be the boy she once knew, but he is her flesh and blood. She whispers a prayer of thanks. She has one final question. Why does she sense the cold aura of death from him? Rion freezes in shock. As the words aura of death echo, Rion realizes she's detected the dark energy of a necromancer. Though he's a swordmaster and a paladin, he knows a holy knight like his mother won't be fooled. Half-hearted excuses won't work. The moment Peyton's son kidnapped him, the signal flare for his plan was lit. Sena, Truno, and even his mother, everyone was an indispensable piece on his grand chessboard. He needs her to understand his transformation, so she'll follow his lead without hesitation. To prevent any reckless moves, he decides to reveal everything, starting with a haunting dream from his past. His mother asks what kind of dream it was. Rion corrects her, it was more like a grim revelation. He begins to describe the vision, a terrifying future where the Sermon family meets its total annihilation. He tells her of a world where the Peytons burn their lands while the kingdom and nobles abandon them. He watched as Peyton's forces slaughtered Colin and their people, the bloodied conflict spiraling out of control. It was a nightmare that felt all too real. In that vision, Rion himself was dragged away as a prisoner. He saw his mother and sister Maria captured. He watched Sina and Alejandro struggle desperately to save them. Sina pushed her limits until she broke, and Alejandro was turned into a pincushion by arrows, right before his eyes. They were brutally butchered. Rion then endured years of agonizing torture and experiments at Peyton's hands. That death was his final wake-up call. Through it, he found his purpose and the power he now wields. His mother is stunned. Was that horrific dream really the trigger for all these world-changing events? Rion affirms it. Truno realizes that coming from anyone else, this would sound like total nonsense. But considering the son of Peyton's actual crimes, it's impossible to dismiss. Sina wonders if it was a divine prophecy. His mother questions if this is a dormant power awakened through the ancient Sermon bloodline. Perhaps he's been pulling strings from the shadows to prevent that dark future from ever becoming a reality. Otherwise, a mere child could never have maimed a Peyton or faced the horrors of the Dark Zone. She pauses, asking about his next move. Rion hesitates. Would she truly believe such a wild story from him? She answers firmly, he is no child, but a leader making the hard calls for their very survival. For the future of House Sermon, she and everyone present will back him with everything they have. Rion accepts their support. There's no turning back. But he warns her, there is one thing she may never allow. When she tells him to speak, Rion drops the bomb. They must renounce their status as a prestigious family. The weight of his words hits like a physical blow. Truno stares at him in absolute disbelief. Give it up, he gasps. If they do that, the Sermon family will be reduced to a common house. They would lose their noble standing and centuries of status. Rion remains eerily calm. He already knows. He explains that for the current weakened Sermon family, regaining that glory is an impossible dream. Sina notes that a prestigious family holds power that eclipses nations and shapes the world's destiny. During catastrophes, such families act as humanity's shield. His mother reminds him of their interdimensional authority. She asks one last time, is he really telling them to throw all of that history away? Rion's answer is cold, they must. Because very soon, the Peyton family is going to start a war. Peyton knows their weakness better than anyone. To them, crushing the Sermons is a gamble worth taking. To forge the ultimate legacy, Rion questions Sermon's fate. If war erupts, do they even stand a chance? Rion drops a truth bomb. High-tier clan wars are lawless zones. Without royal backing, they're basically sitting ducks. Survival means dropping their prideful title. They must seek refuge under a kingdom's banner and exploit continental law as a shield. But for this gamble to work, his mother's final word is absolute. Celine stares stunned. Rion steps up declaring, this isn't a surrender, it's a cold, calculated masterpiece of a strategy. It's a tactical feint to trap their enemies. He presses her to decide, but time is a luxury they don't have. One more condition, Maria needs to come home. Rion demands his little sister be brought back into the fold immediately. Sina panics. Bring the young lady into this chaos. Maria is the only light left in her mother's crumbling world. Rion doesn't flinch. He knows they've already placed a heavy burden of expectation on Maria's young shoulders. This move unlocks Maria's true potential and path. He asks for their trust, even if he can't reveal everything just yet. Silence hangs heavy in the air. Finally, Rion's mother relents with a heavy nod. Very well, she whispers. She officially renounces the Sermon title to reclaim Maria. Clutching her chest, the weight of years begins to lift. Rion breathes a sigh of relief. This path avoids a bloodbath and spares his family from useless, tragic sacrifices. With a somber gaze, she admits she might not be the leader the Sermon family truly needs anymore. Rion is blindsided. But she looks at him not as a legendary holy knight, but as a mother protecting her son. She places the fate of Sermon squarely on his shoulders. If he wants the crown, he must prove he can carry it. As the current head, she demands a trial of worth. Can Rion actually handle the crushing weight of their family's legacy? The challenge, survive one single strike. She draws her blade, the terrifying weapon of a high-ranking holy knight. The onlookers freeze. This is the Silver Dragon, a dual-class swordmaster and paladin. They beg her to stop, but Rion sees the truth. The position of family head is a lonely throne. Celine knows Rion is the only one capable of seizing it. With her husband and sons lost to war, the lineage is hanging by a thread. This isn't just a test. It's a secret abdication. Survive the blow, and she'll bow to his will and silence the grumbling family elders herself. She'll shoulder all the fallout. Every consequence, every bit of drama, she'll handle it all if he proves his strength. A system alert blares. Quest triggered. Rion's eyes turn cold and sharp as he prepares for the coming storm. Celine's recognition begins. As she levels her sword, Rion vows not to let his mother bear this burden alone. Power surges through his veins as he grips his weapon. If blood and steel are the only language she'll hear, then so be it. He locks eyes with his opponent. This isn't just Mom, this is Celine, the legendary silver dragon of the continent. She's a dual-threat monster, but she can't use both powers simultaneously. Will she strike with raw mana, or divine wrath? Rion has to read her perfectly. One wrong move, one bad guess, and the trial ends in his absolute destruction. Suddenly she blurs. The speed is god tier. Celine moves faster than the human eye can even track. The strike descends like a falling star. Rion can't block. He can't dodge. For a split second, his world goes silent. But Rion has a trump card. Since she chose mana, he activates a forbidden technique, Spirit Form. It's a ghost-type skill he mastered over 100 years in Adian. However, his current mortal vessel is screaming under the pressure. Selene cries out as the impact connects. Rion grunts his body, barely holding together after that monstrous display of power. Chaos erupts as the others rush in. Prayers to Goddess Aldacel fill the air, but Rion simply waves them off. He wears the wound with pride. It's a permanent scar, a physical reminder of his mother's love and his new path. Selene whispers his name, her voice trembling. Rion smiles back, thanking her for finally putting her faith in him. As she pulls him into an embrace, the system pings. Quest complete. Rion earns Selene's recognition and a massive experience boost. Leveling up like a pro, surviving a Swordmaster strike has evolved his spirit form to a whole new level. The notifications keep rolling. Phantom's level has officially surged. The trial is over, but the work is just beginning. Rion presents a detailed scroll, outlining their next major move. He maps out the perfect timeline to drop their status. Every phase, every step, he's playing 4D chess with their future. Selene scans the document, impressed but worried. She hates that she can only watch from the sidelines for now. Sina interrupts, bowing low. Colin and Alejandro are losing their minds with worry for the young master's safety, especially Alejandro, who is still completely oblivious to the real danger they're in. Bruno keeps Alejandro in the dark since the guy's an open book. Instead, he chooses to handle Colin solo. He's certain Alejandro won't hold a grudge later. The Knight Commander's noble heart is simply legendary. The group splits up. Selene heads out with the crew while Rion disappears into the forest shadows alone. Putting miles between himself and the others, Rion marches toward the distant horizon of the Dayron Kingdom. Reaching the Martin Information Branch, Rion halts. Inside the building, a mysterious woman waits to greet him. "Welcome, Rank 5, Assassin Lord Rion," she says, handing over a high-priority dispatch from the main branch. His true identity remains buried. To the world, he's just Leon, a lethal shadow stalking the night. Rion snatches the sealed letter, his jaw tightening as the weight of the mission settles in. Inside a rowdy tavern, Rion cracks the seal amidst the noise. It's exactly what he suspected. It's the Rank 4 promotion trial, packed with lethal instructions. Suddenly, a blue system window flickers to life. Quest triggered. A second notification follows, confirming his advancement test has officially begun. The objective is simple but deadly: eliminate Mage Goma within the Kalit territory of the Dayron Kingdom. Goma's name rings a bell. A perfect specimen to test if Rion's combat prowess truly hits Rank 4. Legend says Goma arrived in a flash of blood carving out a dungeon. Now villagers vanish like ghosts. Not even the mercenaries bought with the town's pooled gold returned. They went in and never came out. When the local lord ignored the chaos, the desperate villagers turned to a much more specialized organization. No time to overthink. Clear the dungeon, kill Goma. Rion finally arrives in the eerie town of Keld. Dust dances in the dead air as he treks the streets. "You're an outsider, aren't you?" a voice rasps. She warns that he's too young to die and should bolt. Rion just scoffs. "I only just got here." "Kicked out already," the old woman mutters, wondering why anyone would visit this god-forsaken pit. The warning hangs heavy. A fog of death grips the village and its targets. Every single male. From grown men to small boys, everyone is vanishing. Rion stays silent, his gaze sharpening with every word. "Interesting. Only the males." The old crone points a trembling finger toward the jagged mountainside. "See that," she whispers. "A mage dwells there, feasting on men to fuel his twisted mana. Run while you still can," she pleads. Suddenly, a young girl's voice cuts through, calling for her mother. Rion questions the girl, but she shrugs it off. Ignore her. She lost her son, and her mind. "Don't mind her ramblings," she says, pointing him toward a local inn where travelers usually crash. She promises decent food and a bed. Rion notes her vibe, the polar opposite of the terrified old woman. It's almost like she's trying to keep him here, while the old woman's desperate warnings of death continue. "He'll devour you," the crone screams. The girl frantically grabs her, begging the woman to stop. The door slams shut behind them with a heavy thud. Rion recalls the intel about the village's dark rumors. Rumor has it this village is a trap, a lure to serve outsiders to the mage as human sacrifices, trading mercenaries for their own lives cold. Rion decides to play along and heads for the inn. No need to rush the hunt. Rule number 1 of assassination: never dive in without proper scouting. Taking intel at face value is a rookie mistake. "Time to meet the players in this game," Rion mutters. Beneath the pale moon, 2 shadows watch from rooftops. Inside, the innkeeper asks, "Wait, Granny Sarmon." She explains that Sarmon is just a broken soul who watched both her sons vanish into the night. The disappearances are real. It's not just locals, mercenaries, and travelers are being swallowed by the fog too. "Watch your back," she warns. Rion narrows his eyes. And where's the Lord in all this chaos? Did the Lord just let his people rot? The girl claims he sent soldiers, but they found nothing. No leads, no hope. So the villagers pooled their coin for one final roll of the dice. They hired a fixer from the legendary Asan family's assassin guild, the Martin branch. She's convinced they'll end this nightmare. Rian realizes the villagers took charge, not the Lord. It cost us everything, she sighs. Rian nods, the pieces of the puzzle finally clicking into place. I shouldn't say this as an innkeeper, she whispers, but leave this village before the shadows take you. Rian gives a nod. Heavy boots echo as a squad enters, catching his sharp gaze. A mage is among them. The leader demands a feast, grumbling about their current location. He hates being stuck in this rural wasteland. One mercenary turns to question Biak. Is the client here? Biak confirms. Rian spots silver badges glinting on their chests. Silver rank means they've got actual skills. Suddenly, a red-headed woman in a cloak appears. Is she the client? Not a chance. The hooded girl asks to join their table. Meet Ravina. Rian is annoyed she sat without asking. Then she speaks his name. Rian recalls the letter. A target is in the dungeon. Support is coming, codename Sapphire. Why send a guide? He expected a lethal assassin, not a dungeon chaperone. She's being reckless with his name. Ravina claims meeting the Martin Branch legend is legendary. Everyone is talking about him. Rian sharply signals her to keep her mouth shut. She's a total assassin fangirl. Rian isn't amused and demands absolute silence. The client is late. Biak tells the restless mercenaries to have some damn patience. They ditched a troll hunt for this. This job better be worth the hassle. This is Steel Shield's big break. One successful raid, and they'll finally get promoted. They aren't even listening. Ravina scoffs, calling the entire group a bunch of rookies. They have no clue how deadly that dungeon is. Their gear lacks any trap disarming tools. They're leaning way too hard on their mage. Ravina spots the amateur mistake instantly. This is why basic adventurers fail. They think magic is a fix-all for everything. Pros play by different rules. Rian watches as footsteps creak across the old floor. The elderly woman from the village entrance steps forward to meet the group. She is Sarman, the client. Rian recognizes her immediately from earlier. A heavy sack hits the wood. Gold coins scatter like light across the table. It's her life savings. Kill the mountain mage and recover her son's remains. She breaks down, begging to bury him in a sunny place. Silence grips the room. The leader clears his throat. He guarantees that failure isn't in their vocabulary. He promises results for Steel Shield. But then he hesitates over the small payment. The reward is too low for the danger. Ravina calls it a total ripoff. Sarman offers her family heirloom ring. It was meant for a future daughter-in-law. She'll trade it for her son. The system flashes. Veda's legacy quest has updated. A map reveals the hero's soul. Ravina notices Rian's expression shift instantly. Rian senses the power. The leader snatches the ring before another word is said. This is more than enough. He ignores Biak and orders his crew to move. Steel Shield, let's roll. He admires the glowing treasure now in his possession. A windfall in this middle-of-nowhere village. Pure luck. Rian watches them with suspicion. Ravina stands puzzled by the sudden turn. Night falls over the jagged peaks. Moonlight hits the mountain. The leader demands to know what the ring is worth. The mage scans it. It's a magic item, but its true power is a mystery. It's beyond her current level. Suddenly the ring erupts with a brilliant, vivid light. The leader grins. This payday is looking better by the second. Killing a nobody mage for this treasure, this is the easiest win of his life. The mage hopes for more loot. Any mage building a dungeon must be loaded. Even low-tier mages have hoards. They need to strike while the iron is hot. Move fast and finish this. Rian trails them silently through the moonlit woods. Confidence is a slow killer. No matter their rank, the dungeon always demands a price. Charging blindly without intel is rookie behavior. Ravina suddenly flickers into view next to him. She mocks their amateurish expressions, but Rian inwardly notes she is just as guilty. Acting as a watchdog instead of a sidekick, he realized he could not just abandon them. Ravina scoffs, claiming that despite their sloppy prep, this backwater dungeon should not pose any real threat. Rian warns against arrogance. She counters knowing he is only shadowing them for that mysterious magic artifact. She realizes he is no mere assistant spinning a dark suggestion about his true motives. Just slaughter them and seize it, she teases. Rian tenses, reminding her that assassins aren't common thugs. Stealing purely out of greed makes one a common thief, he asserts. The atmosphere suddenly pivots. They reach a jagged stone entrance pulsating with eerie azure light as a heavy mana tide erupts. Raw energy ripples through the surrounding forest. Heavy boots crunch against the gravel toward the abyss. Swirling mana vortexes condense at the threshold, enveloping Rian and Ravina as they draw closer. Staring into the maw, Ravina confirms it is a dungeon. Rian barks at her to shut her trap. He asks if she even understands stealth. She starts to explain herself. She mentions the silence enchantment ring she gifted him earlier. Rian glares down at the band, his expression shifting. Rian clarifies the guild provided the gear, not her. She shrugs, dismissing his technicality. It makes stalking far more entertaining. She chirps, hailing him as a rising star with a special contract. He is fast-tracked for full membership now. She whispers about his lethal execution of Guru Ta'ani. The Fallen Rose clan paid Martin a fortune for this job. Rian wonders just how massive that payout was. Pure gold, she reveals. Rion's jaw drops at the staggering wealth, his mind racing with suspicion. Did they really dump the whole treasury into Martin's hands? That was not how the deal was structured. He begins tallying the remaining profit after the guild's heavy cut, before abruptly killing the thought. Even a declining noble house would not be brain-dead enough to flush that much gold away. This spectacle was a lure designed to stir up enough noise that he could not possibly ignore it. A desperate scheme to drag him out of hiding. Ravina starts commenting on the girl's precocious intellect. It is impressive, she admits, but Rion silences her as they both fixate on the glowing grotto. The distant radiance beckons. A dungeon, Rion mutters again as waves of mana batter the opening. Those mercs charged in blind, Rion observes. Regardless, only a single path remains open to them. Ravina blinks, confused by his words. She freezes, spotting a dark shift in Rion's cold eyes. Was it truly luck that a hero soul map appeared right during his advancement trial? Furthermore, the local lord is ignoring his own subjects, vanishing like ghosts, total negligence. This is far too convenient to be mere chance. That suspicion forced him to shadow their every step. He scrapped his original agenda, lured in by the map's sudden, inexplicable appearance. This signifies a high-tier quest difficulty. It is not luck. It is the cold logic of the system. The mechanics are mirroring the Adian system now. Even stripped of the interface, things feel wrong. This village hides a dark secret. Mana howls at the entrance as the pair stands before the abyss. Blood-curdling screams rip through the cavern. Rion snaps his gaze toward the source of the agony. The rhythmic clang of steel echoes out, followed by a violent detonation from the deep shadows. A shockwave ripples across the entrance. Rion narrows his eyes, wondering if the mage unleashed that blast. Silence falls as they creep closer. Ravina notes the sudden quiet and checks the time. 30 minutes, she calculates. Rion scowls. A silver rank squad should not be annihilated this quickly. That mage likely carried them to their rank, which reveals a much grimmer reality. Not even a high-tier mage survived 30 minutes here. Rion declares it is time to move. Ravina flinches in shock. Rion explains that following the dead ensures they will reach the mercenaries' final stand. Triggered traps will not fire twice. They can safely analyze the spent hazards ahead of them. Decoding these mechanisms provides the edge they need. Ravina observes his cold pragmatism with growing fascination. Rion smirks, impressed. He lunges forward, his boot crunching firmly against the stone floor. Vibrant green mana swirls around his palm. Ravina flinches, desperately screaming for him to stop. Rion blinks, utterly confused. Ravina snaps that he promised the traps were dormant. Rion calmly corrects her, admitting that's only half true. If these were standard traps. Verdant energy surges as an intricate magic seal glows beneath his fingertips. He explains that without his blue earth tempering technique, he'd be a corpse like those mercenaries. Reality ripples as massive illusion circles manifest, distorting the entire corridor. He spots the illusion array. Ravina's heart races, stammering about the illusions and the fate of the previous group. Rion reveals the snare was set before they even crossed the threshold. We flash back to 20 minutes prior. Deep in the dungeon, Bake gasps for breath amidst burning ruins. The scarred mercenary leader roars in a blind rage, demanding to know why his men have lost it. Bake screams for his boss. Back in the present, Rion notes how incredibly stealthy this specific magic is. It stays invisible until the very last second. He adds that it only warps perception, leaving the body untouched. Victims might never realize they're caught. A master mage could snap it instantly, but these guys didn't stand a chance. By the time they stepped forward, they were already lost. Most explorers focus only on physical tripwires. They foolishly assume a mage can just dispel any magical hex on the fly, but the detect trap skill, that requires a specialist. A low-tier party like this would never have someone with that kind of vision. Ravina realizes they were doomed from the start. Back 20 minutes earlier, inside the dark abyss, chaos erupts as mercenaries butcher their own. The leader cleaves through a comrade, while another screams in pure horror. He can't believe his boss is the one trying to kill him. The leader lunges howling for the monsters to die. Another warrior shrieks about claiming the loot. Blood paints the walls as the group descends into a murderous frenzy. Bake panics, overwhelmed by the phantom monsters. He frantically spins around toward their spellcaster. He begs her to cast something, anything. The mage stammers, desperately trying to analyze the chaotic energy around them. She triggers a blast to push them back, screaming for cover while a shadow looms directly behind her. Pillars of fire erupt as she unleashes her power. A dark beast leaps through the flames. It tears through the mage instantly. Bake senses the trap, but it's way too late. An explosion rips through the cavern. Fire engulfs the walls as the mercenaries continue their frantic, bloody struggle. Blinded by illusions, they tore each other apart in the dark. Back in the present day, Rion and Ravina walk over blood-soaked stone. Rion scans the carnage, confirming his dark suspicions. They're severely mangled, but their souls haven't departed yet. They're still alive for now. Someone dragged the bodies deeper into the shadows. Oddly, only the mage was taken with care. Either she has a specific use, or the others were just trash to them. Rion sighs. Leaving a dead mage behind would have warned the next group. They couldn't risk anyone being on guard. The real mystery lies in the tracks left by the kidnappers. Ravina stares at the prints. Rion notes they look human, but something about the gate is off. He remembers the trap was set outside. Ravina begs him to connect the dots. The records say Goma didn't just spawn a dungeon to hide in. This place was originally a mage's lab for research training, or perhaps something much more sinister. Goma lived here peacefully for years, even staying on good terms with the nearby village. But once the local men started vanishing, the town turned on him. He vanished into the depths. He never came back out. Rion mulls over the isolated dungeon, the hidden mage, and the disappearances. He asks how it all fits together. Ravina gasps, her eyes wide with sudden realization. She wonders if Goma bred monsters specifically for kidnapping. Rion shakes his head. To abduct grown men, you'd need the raw strength of an orc. But if monsters did this, their tracks would have been spotted ages ago. The culprits are almost certainly human. It's clear Goma has accomplices moles who can walk through the village without raising an eyebrow. They vanish without a whisper, snatch the prey, frame the beast Goma, and bait the searchers into the abyss. Whispers of the dungeon's monster spread like wildfire, drawing fresh victims straight into the jaws of death. The hired blades likely met a gruesome end. Ravina's eyes gleam with a mix of fear and awe. Just a theory, Rion mutters. But why only men? Goma's true twisted motive remains buried in shadows. Business first, he declares. An eerie emerald glow erupts, summoning spectral, ghostly silhouettes to his side. Necrotic power surges as Ryan activates Soul Search. The green mist swirls with a terrifying ancient intent. Translucent spirits surge forward, haunting every corridor. These ghostly scouts will peel back the dungeon's dark secrets. The abyss is deep and jagged. Rion spots a shrouded void where his spiritual senses hit a wall. Found you. Goma's lair is close. Beyond this, only basic traps remain. Goma never expected guests to survive. The monster was overconfident. Ravina steps forward with a lethal smirk, finally ready to showcase her skills. Are you insane? Rion growls. This is now rank S danger. One mistake here means a permanent grave. I'll handle this beast. Head back to the village while your heart is still beating. Retreat isn't an option. This promotion and his ultimate grand plan requires him to conquer this hellish descent. Ravina's gaze hardens. I'm Martin Guild. Turning tail now would leave an eternal stain on my honor. Abandoning the mission isn't the assassin way. She'll face the darkness no matter the cost to her soul. Loyalty in a killer. That's rare. Rion wonders if she's hiding a secret agenda beneath that guild pride. She moves closer, clinging to his arm. The heavy silence between them is broken by her trembling breath. Will you protect me? She whispers. I'll try, Rion replies, but don't blame me if we both perish. Shaken by his coldness, she follows him deeper. Far away, a sinister sorcerer watches through a crystal orb. His milky white eyes flare with ancient hatred. Martin scum, he spits, sneering at their pathetic progress. A mere 5th rank, he snarls. The intel was trash. No low-level brat should have made it this far. His perfect lethal traps are being dismantled like child's play. Pure frustration boils in the sorcerer's veins. Not even the Martin elites should have breached these depths. He watches in disbelief as they push forward. My masterpiece stays mine, he bellows. You'll be snacks for my ratmen. Inside a tank, a nightmare awakens. A horned abomination snaps its glowing eyes open. Toxic green fluid bubbles as the creature tastes blood. Mana pulses through the air. Ravina exhales, her work finished. The traps in this sector are officially dead. Pressure plates and hidden blades are neutralized. They have a clear run until the next dark corner. Not bad, Rion admits. But he knows this dungeon hides horrors that physical traps cannot touch. I'm no rookie, she retorts, lifting a pulsing mana stone. Its inner light carves through the suffocating gloom. A crystallized core of arcane power. These stones are worth a fortune, but are volatile as a bomb. Shimmering pink aura floods the floor. Ravina expertly weaves the energy to dissolve the magical seals ahead. Rion is impressed. Dissecting complex mana structures in real time requires the talent of a true master. Even with a top-tier item, her precision is terrifying. She's manipulating the mana flow with absolute grace. Done. Rion gives a sharp, faint smile. Final warning, this is your last chance to turn around. I'm coming, she snaps. Besides, I'm more scared of these dark halls than whatever Goma is hiding. Scared are you? Rion's voice turns ice cold. Then look sharp, because there's something right behind you. The shadows that snatched the mercenaries have returned. Rion points a steady, grim finger at the void. Glowing violet eyes ignite. Before Ravina can blink, a monstrous, blood-curdling roar shatters the dungeon's silence. Rion intercepts the strike, standing as an immovable shield. Ravina trembles, peering at the beast. Is that a rat? She chokes. The massive bipedal horror looms over them, dripping with primal hunger. The village's disappearances finally make sense. Deep within, the sorcerer watches the screen and cackles. Impressive for a 5th rank, he mocks. But let's see how you handle my entire Ratman pack. His sneer turns into a jagged grin. One brat against an army of monsters. The massacre will be glorious. Ravina's heart stops. These abominations are forbidden relics, artificial monsters that should have been erased from history. The Black-White War supposedly purged this filth. How is this dark, ancient magic breathing again? Reality shatters before Ryun's eyes as a Ratman strikes. He retaliates green aura, slicing the air in a deadly dance. As he slaughters the beast, memories of his endless hunts back in Aedion flood his mind. He blurs through the horde, reaping lives while Ravina watches the crimson spray in stunned silence. Emerald arcs of death sweep through the pack. Ryun lunges, a green flash tearing through his foes. His blades carve through flesh with terrifying speed. Ravina can only gape breathless at his overwhelming power. Despite this being his first encounter, he's dismantling these monsters like they're nothing compared to mere goblins. Behind the crystal ball, a hidden observer trembles. He realizes the truth. Ryun is a cold-blooded assassin. This intruder knows their weakness. If he reaches the inner sanctum, everything is ruined. He mounts the platform. He rushes toward the core where an ominous violet light surges. He won't let them take his prize. Inside the chamber, violet flames erupt from an ancient tome as he stands within a pulsing magic circle. Goma's legacy belongs to me, he screams. Suddenly, a cold voice from the shadows commands him to halt. The mysterious figure warns him to remember the strict conditions of their dark deal for that book. Keep experimenting, the figure says icily. The intruders are already dead men walking. Do not fret. The mage wavers, doubting the claim, but the newcomer reassures him of his immense value to their cause. He's their territory's greatest asset, but there's a catch. Any use beyond research is strictly forbidden. As long as he obeys, they will keep him safe from any harm. He still fears the intruder's power, but the visitor scoffs at his anxiety with cold indifference. He dismisses Ryun as a mere insect. Meanwhile, Ryun inspects a dropped blade, sensing something deeply wrong. These aren't crude village tools. He explains the terrifying reality ratmen breed and multiply at a monstrous rate. They reach goblin strength in weeks. Give them a year, and they're orc-level threats. Ravina remains confused. The gear is too high quality. Given the dungeon's age, these monsters shouldn't have access to such weaponry. This evolution is impossible. Worse, these aren't mage-crafted. They're mass-produced, standardized tools of war. No village smith did this. The chilling truth hits him. Someone is breeding a monster army. Ravina argues that forming an army takes a year of evolution, time they supposedly didn't have. Goma's dungeon is too new. Ryun realizes there must be a sinister shortcut to creating these beasts. They aren't waiting for nature. They're using the ultimate taboo, transforming kidnapped villagers into mindless ratmen. Ravina shudders in horror. If Ryun is right, only two powerful figures could orchestrate such an atrocity. He names the mastermind Lord Kazan Khalid, but the one getting his hands dirty is someone else. It's the Lord's brother, the Knight Commander, Sir Caden Kolad. The evidence around them is undeniable. Ravina gasps as the horror of a monster army sinks in. Ryun knows the villagers are innocent. Caden's faction lacks the gold for this. They couldn't possibly fund such high-tier gear and complex traps. Goma couldn't pull this off solo. This rot goes straight to the top. The Lord is definitely involved. The Lord is sacrificing his own subjects, Move Ryun shouts. We might still save some of them. As they delve deeper, Ravina hesitates. A dark thought crosses her mind, and she finally speaks up. She notes his suspicious knowledge of these monsters. Ryun stiffens, muttering that the truth is complicated. Suddenly, a bone-chilling snap echoes. Ratman lunges from the dark jaws, wide and thirsting for blood. Ravina blurs into motion, intercepting the beast mid-leap. Ryun stares, realizing she just saved his life. A crossbow. Ravina shrugs it off, claiming basic training, while Ryun eyes the perfectly placed bolt, a bullseye in pitch darkness. He scoffs at her basic training excuse. This was the work of a pro. Trudging forward, Ravina questions why a lord would stoop to such depraved, inhumane depths for power. She spots another trap, noting that if Ryun's theory holds, the lord has hit the jackpot. Ratmen are the ultimate expendable soldiers. The pieces click together. The conspiracy is now undeniable. No average citizen could uncover this. He turns to her, sensing she's hiding something even bigger. Ravina cuts him off, sensing the pulsing heart of the dungeon. They've finally reached the source. The mana core surges, fueling the traps ahead. Ryun watches, the glowing ley lines pulse beneath his feet. Ryan nods. The end is close. Suddenly, both sense a lethal presence lurking ahead. A massive spiked mace slams down, shattering the silence with a bone-crushing impact. A monstrous Ratman ogre emerges from the gloom, wielding that devastating spiked weapon. Ravina identifies the beast instantly. Ryan smirks, noting she is quite the monster expert. She snaps back, telling him to stop playing around because things just got real. The ogre bellows a terrifying roar before swinging its massive mace straight at them. Ryan lunges forward with only a dagger. Ravina screams that he is absolutely insane. Steel meets iron as Ryan parries the ground, exploding under the weight of the blow. As the mace rebounds, Ryan seizes the moment, manifesting a sharp, glowing mana blade. Ravina is stunned. How can a rank 5 assassin use mana? Ryan readies his counterstrike. He asks for backup, and she locks in, unleashing a rapid volley of bolts. The projectiles just bounce off the monster's hide like they are nothing but toothpicks. Ryan shouts that direct hits are useless. That thick skin is like tank armor. He orders her to use the environment. System scan. Level 20, Ratman Ogre detected. It is Manslayer level. Rion clashes again, knocking the massive mace aside effortlessly. He considers his necromancer powers, but decides it is too early for that trump card. System physical acceleration and domination online. Rion's strength stat hits a new peak. The ogre charges like a tank, but Rion blurs, striking the beast with precision. Agility stats skyrocket as the system pushes Rion's speed to the absolute breaking point. He knows this move is a huge gamble, but he has to risk everything now. His monosword glows fiercely. Attack power and cutting edge are buffed to the max. Ravina watches in awe as Rion hovers behind her blades, humming with lethal energy. The beast lunges, but Rion vaults, high diving back down with twin glowing blades. With energy crackling around him, he narrows his eyes and locks onto his target. He carves through the ogre with both swords, unleashing a massive spray of blood. The monster recoils from the impact as the shockwave blasts Rion through the air. Ravina cries out, but the ogre is already falling. The system triggers a curse. Purple energy chokes the beast. Its strength fades as the weakness curse takes hold. Debuffs stack slow and defense down. Rion yells for Ravina to trigger the trap now. Hidden wall mechanisms grind to life as the deadly trap finally clicks into place. Jagged spikes erupt, skewering the screaming monster. Rion dives in for the killing blow. He buries his blades deep, landing with the calm aura of a true conqueror. Ravina gasps, asking if it is dead. Rion immediately tells her to stop jinxing them. Don't be an idiot, he warns, just as a new enemy strikes from the dark. Circaden Khalid ambushes from behind, but Rion is already mid-parry, eyes glowing. Purple aura clashes against blue light, as both warriors unleash their full killing intent. Caden is impressed a monosword at his age. This kid is definitely no amateur. He suspects Ryan is the mastermind pulling the strings behind this entire chaotic mess. Suddenly, Rion's chest burns. The Arcane curse is flaring up at the worst time. Dark energy consumes him. Rion realizes this is the mana backlash hitting him hard. He expected this fallout, but the timing of this curse is absolutely god-awful. Recovery rates tank. Every wound feels twice as heavy as his health begins dropping. He activates the Blue Earth Tempering method to stabilize his wildly flickering internal mana. His brutal training pays off, the pain is intense, but it is not enough to break him. Drenched in blood, Rion stands his ground. Caden Khalid is his biggest challenge yet. Doubting his broken body, he mocks the knight's noble ambush. But one glance at that grip reveals the truth. This man is a monster. One glance at his blade confirms it. He's a knight. Caden Khalid sneers, calling the ambush a total drag. He claims it was just a vibe check for Rion's skills, holding back just enough to keep him breathing. Surviving a hit from a swordmaster with his head intact is all the proof anyone needs, he adds. Rion's gaze turns icy. Caden admits Goma low-key underestimated him, tagging him as a lowly 5th ranker. But watching him crush that Ratman ogre changed everything. Rion lunges steel, flashing with deadly intent. Crimson energy sparks as they collide. Caden notes that Rion's power definitely hits 4th rank or beyond. Now the gloves are off. He reveals his true status as the High Commander, ready to end this. Leading the Khalid Knights, he introduces himself as Caden. Rion realizes this is the Lord's own brother. Rion scoffs that assassins don't usually do introductions. Meanwhile, Ravina catches Rion's secret signal. It's a guild-specific code. Rion silently acknowledges that Caden is way more dangerous than any mindless Ratman. Rion warns Ravina to fall back before she gets caught in the crossfire. Traps won't stop a master. He screams at her to run. Caden stalks forward, his blade burning with menacing red aura. Ravina stands frozen in terror. Rion anchors his stance against Caden as she finally bolts for safety. Caden mocks him for playing the hero. Quite the gentleman for a cold-blooded killer, he sneers. Rion retorts that Caden's name doesn't matter. It changes absolutely nothing about his fate today. I never back down from a challenge, he roars, charging with cerulean energy as Ravina flees. Metal screams behind her. Suddenly she spots a fallen boy and realizes their enemy is actually human. Caden welcomes the duel, swinging with monstrous power. Their blades meet in a bone-shattering explosion of force. Caden vows that no one escapes alive. Rion tightens his grip, his sword surging with blue mana. Right back at you, Rion snaps. Suddenly, Ravina's blood-curdling scream rips through the air, stopping him cold. The boy rises, face twisted as dark corruption consumes his skin. Rion wonders, is this human or monster? Rion's shocked she was caught so easily despite her guild training. Ravina can only stutter in fear. Goma emerges from the shadows, mocking her. It's not her lack of skill that's the problem here. He reveals the Ratman's unique trait, born from the chaos of failed human experiments and dark science. Rare specimens develop special gifts. This one's weak in combat but possesses god-tier stealth and concealment. It shifts between human and monster at will. In Ratman form, it's a perfect mindless puppet, he adds. But the human form triggers haunting memories. It's always desperately searching for its mother, Goma explains coldly. That pathetic trait made it the perfect bait for kidnapping the unsuspecting men from the village. Goma remembers the creature crawling toward a mercenary's gear, screaming for its mother before bolting away. Even under his control, those instincts lingered. His gaze shifts toward a trembling Ravina. He scoffs that she's still too human for an assassin. Using a child as bait worked perfectly. How can you be so nonchalant? Ryan growls, his blue aura erupting in a violent surge. Since Goma finally showed his face, Rion suggests he should be grateful for an easy death. Goma erupts in maniacal laughter. Rion demands an answer as he blurs the distance between them. Goma flinches as Kaden appears. Meanwhile, the boy pins Ravina, using her as a human shield. Kaden mocks Rion's confidence. Forget the girl, he barks, ready to deliver a crushing blow. He lunges with a heavy strike. Rion parries his blue mana, exploding against Kaden's descending blade. Neither of you leaves this place, Kaden roars, shockwaves of energy shattering the ground beneath them. He presses the attack, calling Rion's defense trash. Rion digs in his heels and prepares to counter. Goma scoffs that even with mana, Rion's barely pushing 4th rank Martin levels. We knew you were coming, he yells. The villager's request to Martin was all part of the plan. Kaden boosted the reward just to bait high-tier targets for their twisted Ratman experiments. Kidnapping wasn't enough. Rion realizes they're weaponizing the villagers' own desperation against them. They force them to hire mercenaries. The Lord looks clean while the men become monsters. Grieving families are exploited, then blamed. What are people to you? Rion asks. Resources, Kaden replies. Silence follows. He scoffs, retracting his duel offer. Stalling worked, the penalty timer has finally trickled down. Kaden Khalid laughs it off as a bluff, mocking the idea of a comeback. Goma finds it hilarious. He boasts of his mastery in swordplay and magic backed by an endless tide of Ratman soldiers. Rion cuts him off. Talk is cheap, show me what you have got. Dark energy erupts from his frame. The air turns heavy. Goma trembles as Kaden recognizes the beast emerging from the shadows. A Ratman ogre. Rion raises a hand, summoning a massive skeletal horror that looms over the battlefield. Time to pay, he declares. Experience the same agony you inflicted on the innocent. The undead shrieks, shaking the earth. Kaden realizes the truth. He is facing a high-level necromancer. The Titan charges. Rion strikes in tandem, their combined force crashing against Kaden's defenses. Kaden cleaves through the darkness, refusing to yield. A mere zombie won't stop a knight. He sneers at the beast. Meanwhile, Goma screams for Kaden to take Rion alive for his experiments. Since Veda vanished, necromancers are gold. His secrets could revolutionize their twisted Ratman research. Rion stands amidst his ghouls. Kaden just laughs, seeing a payday instead of a threat. Kaden mocks the main character's trump card after a quick takedown, but Rion just tilts his head. Worrying about me, Rion asks. That fallen beast already planted a lethal curse inside you. Horror fills Kaden as black veins spread. The corruption is already devouring him from within. He loses himself, a guttural scream echoing as his body warps. Goma's face drains of color. How is the dark taste? Rion asks coldly. Kaden's form twists into a grotesque nightmare. Rion senses another presence. He reminds Goma of that boast about having a massive army. Monstrous footsteps drag through the gore. Goma breaks into a cold sweat as a low growl vibrates. Let us use everyone's soldiers, Rion smirks. His mana swells thick enough to choke the air. Goma's jaw drops. Behind Rion, a sea of glowing eyes rises. The dead are returning. An army of shadows forms a wall of death. Rion asks, who has the bigger squad now? Driven by madness, Kaden lunges. His attacks are chaotic, desperate, and terrifyingly fast. Steel meets bone as he carves through the horde. Rion admits the man is undeniably powerful. But strength isn't everything. Kaden's expression falters as the realization of his situation hits home. Sickly green energy flares. Rion notes that Kaden has zero experience fighting a true necromancer. The dead swarm him. You are still human, Rion whispers. And humans eventually run out of breath. Blood sprays. Kaden falls forever. Goma stumbles back, his world collapsing in pure terror. A sharp cry pierces the air. A boy stands over a discarded ring, Ravina slumped over his shoulder. He glares at the glowing heirloom, then collapses, clutching his head in absolute agony. Pain racks his body. Ravina whispers about the ring, a precious memory of a lost family. A mother's final plea to mercenaries, bring my sons home. Even if they were only cold corpses. The boy seethes with rage. Goma, desperate, grabs a hostage and tries to play his last card. Care about your friend, Goma sneers, tightening his grip. He warns everyone to stay back or else. Before he can finish the threat, a blade erupts through his chest. His breath hitches in shock. His smug grin shatters. Blood spills as a choked, broken sound escapes his throat. The boy stands behind him, hands crimson. Goma gasps for air, his body failing him instantly. The light fades from his eyes. This is impossible, he wheezes, unable to comprehend his defeat. The trap was set. The spell should have forced the boy to self-destruct upon rejection. Ravina watches unmoved. The boy begins to glow, a brilliant golden light radiating from his soul. Thank you, he murmurs. The light turns blinding, and Goma's body begins to convulse violently. Electricity fries his nerves. He screams as white-hot flames erupt, engulfing him in a pillar of fire. He is blasted into the air before crashing down, a charred husk still flickering with embers. Silence returns. Rion walks through the smoke, retrieves the fallen ring, and leaves the carnage behind. A system alert pings the Veda's legacy quest has officially evolved. Another window flashes, granting a map leading to the hero's soul. Rion examines the ring with laser focus. Suddenly, a stray arrow clips his hand, sending the ring spiraling into the air. Ravina snatches it mid-air and slides it on. A blinding divine glow erupts instantly. She smirks at the success. Rion shouts her name, but she stares straight ahead. Her gaze turns lethal. Holy energy surges as she unleashes a massive volley of light. Arrows streak past Rion, decimating the monster horde in a relentless explosive bombardment. Golden aura swallows the battlefield. Ravina reveals this weapon is forged with divine power, obliterating every undead it touches and reflecting the damage back onto their master. Dark sigils sear Rion's skin. Ravina mocks him. She knew he was a necromancer all along. She admits he's tougher than expected. Rion counters that he's just as shocked. Shadow mana flickers as Rion glares. Her shifting personality and mana are truly terrifying. Clutching a radiant crystal, Ravina laughs. We're just full of surprises, aren't we? Ethereal flames engulf her. She turns her predatory focus entirely onto a cornered Rion. Blue aura flares around Rion as massive skeletal titans rise from the darkness. Are you truly Vedas' disciple? She demands. That wraps it up for today. Remember to smash that like button and subscribe for more epic recaps.